Right, I'm here for another episode of Thorinquiry, which is, of course, my interview series on my side channel here on YouTube. And for this episode, I have got Charls Carroll, who is, here's the problem. Technically, I guess you're like a streamer slash, I'm sure people would say, how would they describe you? Like a comedian, prankster? What do you say? Do you have a title that you give yourself?
I think I would consider myself a comedian forced into early retirement.
Okay.
I think so. Maybe a former comedian that's getting ready to come out of retirement, perhaps.
Right.
In the interim, I did I started doing some streaming for a couple thousand hours, so I could keep from freaking going insane. So I had to keep on going, and I wasn't about to start doing the same old bullshit all over again after that whole ride that I got taken on. Because once you take that ride, you don't get on that again unless you're an idiot. So I've just been sort of cooling my jets. Or firing them up, I guess you could go either way. But I have continued with some I don't know what kind of comedy you want to call it, but it's not nearly mainstream, and it's not really widely known, mainly because I'm an idiot business wise. Okay. But I did keep doing some crazy videos on my own site, Charls World, which I'm starting to come out of an insane fog. So I'll be looking to get those in other places because people kind of just I sort of got erased. You know what I mean? People kind of forgot what I was doing, but I kind of wanted it that way in many regards, just so I didn't have to get needled by millions of trolls. I took a route that allowed me to keep on growing, I guess, if you want to use that word. And it really gave me an out to all the BS that I had to get on my knees and suck for all these years, and it really just kind of allowed me to build my life back instead of selling my ass all over again.
Sure. I mean, for people who don't know, one of the things I think is going to be interesting about this conversation is, first of all, we actually have like a sort of weird shared point in time many, many years ago, like 2 decades ago, when Quake was the big game. And that was actually, if people don't know, that was my entry point to esports. As I came into a very different industry than I'm in now. I was all about like hardcore competition. It was the ultimate, so I wouldn't say like male space because it was a lot of nerds, but it was a very different culture and world to what it's nothing like what it is now, put it that way. And so I actually think like if we start out where we're talking now, if people wonder why you would frame it that way, like you're sort of a comedian forced into early retirement, well, the joke is, if you look at the wider world, when all this like culture war TM, I'm doing air quotes, type stuff's discussed, the famous thing like normies says, they're always sort of like, oh, how does it really affect anything? Like a joke isn't a big deal or whatever. It's like, no, because the premise is, if you can't anymore even say a purely fabricated comedy scenario on stage without that being scrutinized, without that having implications, without it like impacting your reputation, your life, your relationships, if you can't do it essentially in a scenario where we're saying we're supposed to be carving out this space as a performance zone in which we inherently do not mean what we are saying, except for the purpose of performance and what it might mean in your mind. Like, if that's under attack, spoiler, you are going to be under attack when you go to work, when you go to the post office, when you interact with anybody within that culture. Like, that is actually like that's like a death knell of your culture in a way.
Oh yeah, it's when you have a safe space where you can put out ideas and thoughts that criticize or glamorize whatever sort of ideas you have. When you have a systematic removal of that space and a systematic intentional degradation of your culture, it becomes a military operation.
Oh, for real?
So, it's something completely different.
I mean, in some ways, literally and metaphorically, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. Because it's the people always say, the Chinese totalitarian Chinese social credit.
Sure.
Dude, social credit has been around for decades, and you're seeing it now hotly enacted all throughout the culture. That's why people kind of realize that it's all over, because it's too late now. As a social credit, they didn't have to assign you a number in your face like they do in China. They did it in other ways, but it'll be exactly the same everywhere, because it's one gigantic military operation to remove any speech that criticizes or glamorizes or whatever, and in doing so removes the thought itself. So it's just so it's essentially mind control, thought control. But who's going to believe that?
Yes. Oh, by the way,
that
on
was
that
going to be
topic,
that.
like that's an area I feel like I could just go into it for a second. Like two things I would say is one, the last point you made was very key. Like the knock on is what people won't get. They'll think this is where you can. It's so amazing because like that, like step by step approach, the stepping stone approach / the boiling of the frog approach, it just works on humans. It's clearly the best tactic because you even see people around you who sort of like maybe 75% agree with your point, but they don't get like the actual tactical element that like this is going step by step. And if you can sort of give them ground here, you're going to give them a little bit of ground here as well, and then later you're going to give them more ground, and eventually there is no ground left to give. So like, for example, on the topic you're talking about here, I would absolutely say that when people think, well, we don't have like a Chinese social credit system, it's like the joke is they're just more subtle with how they implement it in our system, and they just did it more perniciously gradually over the years. So I'll give you an example from my own career of how essentially there is a social credit system. As people might know by the fact I am right now talking on a side YouTube channel, I have a lot of interests that aren't just about esports, but one of the reasons I haven't gone as hard on my side channel is because at the time when I made this side channel was when I noticed people started to get shadow banned and they would get removed their monetization. That was exactly the sorts of topics I might have talked about. So that doesn't mean someone came to me from YouTube like, if you talk about that, I'll fuck you up. But essentially, you didn't need to. I myself censored myself in a way. You know what I mean? Like, I just decided maybe if I do that, it's as a one. Like now, I'm doing it just for my own funsies, not trying to make money or build the channel. Yeah, exactly. They've sort of got me on the level. Then I don't even agree with them.
Oh yeah. You have no choice but to play ball in that sense because I come from a pretty rough Wild West style, and you saw what happened with that. And in order for me to even maintain my living and not get either trolled out of existence or be sicked on by the thought police or whatever you want to call them, I really had to not exactly toe the line, but I just had to use my specialty, which is actually doing comedy and not doing politics. So you can always sort of toe the line if you keep it filled with mirth and you sort of become the jester in doing these things. But still, when they come, sooner or later they'll come for you. And the thing is, if you do it slow and you ramp up the technology, they don't have to come for you. The algorithm and the AI will come for you. How do you sue an algorithm? How do you sue an AI? You ever try that before? How do you fight against a computer? You can't. So they waited to do it with technology because in China they can do whatever they want. But you see, in places like America, when millions of people have firearms, you can't do things fast because there would be bullets flying everywhere. For the rest of history, there'd be bullets flying everywhere. So they do it really slow, and by the time you realize what's happening, the youth and your own children are reporting you to the police for these ideas. It's a classic thing that's been warned about, I guess, if you consider books like 1984 warnings, which they're not, they're blueprints and they're textbooks. They're not warnings at all. They let you know how things are going to go down. And lo and behold, things have gone down exactly, thus. And you can't go back. Once you give power to the demons, you never, or rights or whatever, you never get them back. They just take and take. I mean, try flying, try going to an airport, try mailing something or whatever. The security will never go away. It'll only go more and more, and the censorship will always go more and more, and there'll be less people to point your fingers at because it's a goddamn computer doing it. And then what do you do? What do you shoot a computer? There's nothing you can do at that point. And next thing you know, that your own children. This is a very systematic approach, and people that have been doing it for thousands of years. And most people are honestly too worthless, too stupid, too undeserving of any rights at all. Honestly, I mean, it is what it is. It's not their fault because were tortured since birth. It's nothing personal. It's just how that's just how these global operations work. It's just it's hard to escape, and they remove every single space, or your spaces are infiltrated by people that hate the space or hate you. It's very, very systematic. But I mean, who's going to believe it? Who's going to believe it? They'll call you every name under the sun. Next thing you know, you gotta get on your knees, sell ass just to make a living. You gotta work at a goddamn gas station. What do you do then? What are you gonna do? Fight? You fight the world? You fight the system? You know what happens if you fight it? You get crushed.
Oh, they love it
crushed.
I mean, we'll definitely get into this, but they love the people who directly resist them. Like, I know, sadly, that's the psyop that everyone's caught in now. Like, they're the heroes, support the ones directly. Like, they're basically people throwing themselves into the machinery, just getting eaten up by the fucking gears. Like, it doesn't end well for them guys. They just pull that body out and keep the machine going. Like, anyway, let's pull it back a second. So one thing I wanted to ask was, I get the vibe, actually, this is another area we have a shared ground, which is when you came into the space where you were doing this comedy, and especially obviously some of the stuff people know with Sam Hyde, etc., both of you, basically what's happened to your space, that's why actually I think you're very apt to what you said at the end there, is similar to what's happened to my space. Whereas actually like esports was this super niche nerd area that was nearly all men. It was actually even, I would say it was celebrated for the fact that there were no rules, that you could say anything, do anything, be anyone. It was just about how good you were at the game. Literally, it was a very pure area.
You could do one or two things if you didn't like what someone said. You could either take it or you could kill yourself.
Basically,
it was a very like that, either one or a zero.
Yes. And well, here's the issue. I kind of see a similar trend with what happened in your space, because here's the thing. In the early internet, the type of humor you were doing, a bit edgy, but has like a point to it, or sometimes just for the sake of being funny and edgy, that was all the internet early comedy. People all know the site Something Awful, all that rotten.com. There was loads of that in the early internet. But the difference was, back then, if you were edgy, you were just edgy for the people who found being edgy interesting. And generally, the mainstream, you either never interact with them or they don't know you exist or care. Now, the main thing is this. Like, I remember seeing this a few years ago, especially with Sam's stuff, where obviously that meme became that everyone would joke and insert his name for all like the shooters and stuff. Like, that seems funny and edgy when we were young. In the modern day, that stuff for real, that will get you killed. Like, that'll get you on a list. That'll get you, that'll get some fucking certain left-wing militant groups might attack you on site. Like, that's I guess sooner or later. That's why you were sort of forced into retirement, right?
Mental asylum.
Yeah, tell me about this, because essentially, like, you were sort of forced out if you want to have a normal life in any sense, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the bridges were very systematically burned in my case to prevent any comeback or any keep the flame going. I guess you could call it, or carrying of the torch. It made it anathema, and it made it radioactive, and it gave it AIDS, which not the Magic Johnson variety. I'm talking about the real one.
Oh, here's the thing though, dude. People don't realise there's another element of the social credit score just baked into the system. The more that you do these things where the system tries to shut you down, censor you, dismiss you, another thing it does is it almost is like machine learning as a premise. It finds the weak spots. So it'll find who in your network, who's your mate, can't handle it if this scrutiny comes to him. Who's the relative you have who has a slightly tangential connection to some sort of government agency or body that they can be fired through. They'll find the pressure points even if it isn't you. That's why it's so sort of disturbing when it happens, right?
Yeah, classic blackmail machine, classic brownstone machine, whatever you want to call it. It's an espionage that's been around since the Bible times. It's the same junk over and over, and they'll find you and they'll get you. And the people that are really big and the real heroes, let's say you want to call them the alt-right crowd, the ones that are fighting for patriotism and all that, all those people, they have a license to do this. It's all counter-intel pro. They're all even worse than the machine that's running the whole thing, the scum on all that. All they do is get the young people to paint targets on their back, their employment, their families, everything ruined. If you want to, if you don't shut your mouth. Oh yeah. But those guys are the heroes, right? Oh yeah. It's crazy how people don't see it. It's insane. But that's how good these people are at running these things. They've been doing it for thousands of years.
Oh, they're very good, yeah. In fact, by the way, let's address that topic, because one thing I find about this whole area, because basically one of the things I really vibed with in a lot of your small videos, which are just, if people don't know, they're not like set videos that he planned with a script. They're just things where he's streaming for hours and hours and a topic comes up and he just, like, if you notice half the time, it's just when he's chilling with a cigar. He just happens to he just sort of goes off on that topic, and if it's a good 5-10 minutes, he pops on YouTube, and they exist as these almost like little esoteric gems or like thought for the day type scenario, right? When you make these videos, I noticed one of the things that I really vibe with is you seem to have like consciously gone out your way to try and transcend like things like the idea of like, I have to pick a movement, or like, well, which side am I on? Or like, oh, well, I'm following this guy. It's like that, as we say, the whole problem with the whole culture war thing is, it's like, as you say, basically my main issue, the first psyop I think everyone has to overcome or they're fucked, is the notion that like, first of all, the first things you learn are like, this is the conspiracy, it's this famous guy and this guy. It's like, that's always like one layer in itself. Then secondly, as soon as you go, well, if they're the evil ones, then this must be the guy battling him. The guy battling him's just layer 2. He's definitely just built into the same system. And the real problem is, not only do those rabbit holes sometimes never end, if we're talking about the old alphabet agencies, but more importantly, the thing I've noticed you've come to at the end is, since you're trying to transcend them, actually, you're just sort of spinning your wheels if you just endlessly go down the rabbit holes. Like, essentially, you want to move beyond those issues. You don't want to be trapped following guy X or guy Y. You want to figure out your own shit, right?
Oh, yeah, you have to. These people are plants. These people have a license to they're Pied Pipers. They're paid to capture. They make a lot of money smoking people out. They smoke people out. And they get people to attach labels to themselves so they can be leveled. Anyone that wants to pick a side, and they tell you like, oh yeah, if you don't believe in politics, but politics believes in you. I'm like, oh yeah, you know what, politics? I'll get on my knees, I'll blow politics. Shut up, politics. Like I give a damn. You know, everything is done and it steamrolls through you, no matter what side, whatever. So the only way you can win is if you don't play. The only side that wins is no side. There's one side. It's life. You know, you can either worship life or you can worship death. If you want to pick a side for yourself, you'll be in the death zone. If you check out and try to build your life instead and try to increase the quality of life of yourself, your family, your friends, and people who actually give a damn, didn't wave goodbye. You know, when you stop doing hardcore charged political videos, they didn't wave goodbye to you forever. You know, the people that actually stayed with that and are interested in bettering themselves, realizing how they've been abused ever since they were born. You know, those people are the ones that have a shot to actually getting out of the system. Everyone else that's you know, piped into another side. It's just absolute crap. And their lives aren't ruined yet, but they will be.
Oh, inevitably, yeah. I mean, there's another area I feel like is so misunderstood. Is like, I don't know how a fan, the guy who's the random pleb, can't see that, like, mate, how could he be the hero if he has to use all the fucking mediums of the machine itself that you're saying is corrupt and evil? And remember, people can simultaneously, dude, believe that the whole system's run by like cosmic intergalactic evil, like time traveling dimensional
lizard
pedophiles, but at the same time, they're just doing us all a favor and letting us listen to like a Times interview with exactly the guy who's the Neo who's going to destroy their matrix. Why would they give him the fucking airtime, guys? You've seen how they do it on YouTube. If they actually really don't want the topic discussed, it is not allowed to be discussed, and your channel gets shut down. Yeah, you get deleted. You are absolutely memory hold. Yes,
on the same day. An interesting coordination. Interesting. It's almost like a military coordination. Weird, isn't it? Must be a coincidence.
By the way, one thing I want to go back into that you said earlier, because I thought you might have an interesting take on this, is, you know, you said earlier how it's almost like when jokes and stuff go out of control, right? One of the things I've noticed you have to do, I've noticed this in my own career, is if a meme in your career, for good or for ill, starts to get out of control, you have to be the one who controls it. Like, you have to find a way to embrace it and make it what you want it to be. Because basically, otherwise, like, these things just get out of control. And the difference is, if you don't interact with those things, other people will. Like, they'll take the comedy you've made, they'll take the position or what you're trying to, they'll assign a thought to you, they'll assign a position, a political angle, etc. Like, you have to sort of like as you said, essentially, comedy can be a weapon against this stuff if you use it very carefully.
Yeah, it's just a reverence for life and a reverence for freedom and a reverence to not have to do nasty things just to make a living, not to, you know, go get into sex work or anything like that. Yeah, people don't understand that people wouldn't be making millions of dollars a goddamn month if they didn't have a mandate and a license from the authorities to do so. You know, they just wouldn't. And you will be assigned, you know, a side, I guess, automatically. And in people, it's hard to resist that magnetism because, you know, the lie that you repeat all the time, it becomes the truth because most people are just so worthless. They don't deserve anything at all, really. For sure. So they'll just sort of go along with it. And there's also the army of bots and people that are on the clock to pretend that they believe in a way. They're just getting paid to do it, or they're programmed to do it. So there's also that sort of army that you have to contend with. That's why you don't contend with it, because you cannot win in a frontal assault with an army that are machines or paid workers looking to plot your demise. It's not possible to win. So the only thing you can do is laugh. Anytime someone calls me a name or says like, "Oh, you gave up on this, you gave up on him, you gave up on, you're a traitor," I'm like this. Yeah. I mean, that's the only option that you have. Yeah, right, yo. I mean, you say go to hell. You don't have to say go to hell, but you don't have to take it seriously, because these weapons require your permission in order for them to be let into your life, or for your soul to be destroyed. Everything requires your permission, and they'll always send armies of whoever. I mean, I've kept a pretty low profile, because my rhetoric is in many ways unassailable. It's not like the crackerjack phonies that the memed out heroes that everyone looks up to. I'm not a crackerjack phony, and I realize that my rhetoric is unassailable. So I'm not going to be shooting my mouth off, because I'll get my head blown off.
Sure. I mean, one thing along those lines that I think is very interesting is, like, I would say the way you said there, like, you got to laugh at them. I actually think this is like almost like a spiritual principle of wherever this realm we live in, dude. Because you know the famous saying where people say, what is it, like, what's that line? Isn't the line something like, like, shame the devil by laughing or something like that? Some line like that. Like, it's sort of true. If you notice, it's one of the reasons
these things can't handle mocking.
Yeah, dude, that's the number one thing. I'm obviously using it for terminology here, but just for the effect. Like, if you think of these as demonic entities, that is the number one thing they can't handle, dude, is the idea that they are mocked. They are sort of dismissed as just humorous. They need to be frightening. They need you to feel like they control you, like you can't beat them. If you just laugh and dismiss them, like, you can see the system can't handle that, mate. No,
it can't. And you can only beat yourself. I mean, the war, it's yourself versus yourself. Like, if you're not laughing, then you're being coerced into fighting someone who might not even be alive, might not even be real, might be a hologram, might be an AI. You don't know. All these people that you see spouting this and that that are doing things in dude, I've never met any of them. I don't even know if they're real. What am I going to fight characters from a book, or archetypes? What am I going to fight archetypes? Yeah, people don't understand that most of the majority of everything they know is a fabrication, and they choose to fight straw men until the day they die, or they get put up against a wall, or they have to, I don't know, perform sex acts in public to get a job somewhere or something like that. The future, in other words, the future that we fought the world wars for. That future, we fought the bad guys so our future could be like this. But people really don't understand that. Just like what we're talking about, war, all of that stuff has an unreality to it as well. Because if these things were real, then we wouldn't be in the hell we're in right now. We would have beaten it. But since it is not beaten, it means that the wars were for nothing, and it means that it cannot be beat from without, only from within.
Yeah, basically, to put all my cards on the table, basically, so where we're going the rest of the convo. I'm someone who generally, what I sort of do is, I do just look at, like, sort of the mainstream world, and I do think some element of that maybe has existed through, again, I don't believe in a lot of the recorded history, so we'll say, like, history, whatever that means, Yeah, again, everything I look into, mate, just fucking, the bottom just falls out and there's no fucking substance. There's never a main source. It never checks out. But anyway, I'll take the premise that people roughly think there was a Roman Empire, these sort of things. I think essentially on some level, if you ever want to be part of the mainstream world, you are always buying into what, for the sake of terminology, I'll just call like Babylon, as it were. It's obviously like an apt fucking religious like analogy people understand. You are choosing to enter Babylon, to do business with them, to whatever, get their baubles, to do their jobs. But you've got to always know you choose to enter it. And to me, the real way I view life is, I view my personal life as when I exit Babylon. Like, I'm back to my little world with my little people, and I try as little as possible to let it interact with my world. I almost make it like I put on the sort of mental hazmat suit to go into that fucking world, because it's so toxic, isn't it?
No, you have to do that, because if you don't have a life. The only reason why I was able to survive the things that happened to me is that I checked out and I focused on my life, and I focused on having fun. And people were still thankfully they were still around to enjoy that, and to help me survive all this stuff by supporting me. And after checking out, not going back to the bullshit that I used to be doing, next thing you know, I'm married, I have a family. I'm not living in abandoned apartments anymore. I'm not out in the streets. I'm not working at a gas station. I'm not working construction, though I liked working construction. I worked with my best friend, so I'm not complaining about working construction. But it's just funny that that I, had to go back to enjoying things like that, doing hard labor after having a show on TV. A lot of people don't really enjoy the aspects of my quiet comeback in those regards, but I really do. And the only reason I was able to come back is I checked out. I didn't go back to do the same BS I was doing. I didn't keep fighting the man, because I'm cursed with one of those with a curse. I know the future, and I know that my prophecies are cursed to not be believed. I'm not the only one. Even the people the crackerjacks that do get paid to talk real, they know what's coming, and people do believe them, but it still doesn't matter. So I really had to check out, and if I was if I was going to let nerds into my mind, how could I have ever been in a mental state or emotional state to actually to become eligible or fit to be married or to have children or anything like that? I would have just been a busted, blown out nerd my whole life, like most of the other people that stayed in the game.
By the way,
one thing, to check out.
When I was a boy, I won't say who, because I try not to actually reveal things about my private life. I mean, you could understand why. There'll always be a nutter who'll go to the bottom of that fucking rabbit hole. Essentially, I'll just keep it vague. I had a relative who once told me when I was young, what I thought at the time was silly, because like everyone else, I was programmed by the system, and an inherent part of being programmed by the system if you were born in the 80s was your parents know nothing, they're of an outdated generation, forget everything they say, they're idiots, just listen to the TV. So basically, what the advice they gave me that I didn't listen to at the time was, someone once told me, you can actually judge every ideology and philosophy by the actual outcome it has on your life. Now, I remember thinking, no. See, this is just because he's a working class person. Like, they don't understand, if you go to university, you have to separate the artist and the art. And you've got to look at, like, what intellectual idea is he playing with here? It's like, and what I realized was that is just wankery that people in universities do. Like, the relative who told me this nailed it, mate, because what their point basically is this: if it's a brilliant philosophy, why isn't your life better as a result of it? Now, what you just said to me there, I also have a similar vibe, mate, because here's the other thing. When initially the whole culture war stuff started affecting my life and career, it was a downer. I was thinking, right, they're taking away something I love or something I enjoyed. What I realized is, and this is a through line in my life in general, dude, it's a blessing. What they freed me from then was this. I was doing a really good job. I was in a similar spot to you. I was essentially someone who was really good at sort of that snarky, edgy, nerd type humour with a little bit of a little bit of creativity sprinkled in to be fun and as an outlet for my creativity, my interests and stuff. But ultimately, I also was in a rough spot in my life. What would be the reason I'm being so edgy? Why would I critique everything? Why would I even want to be the centre of attention and make content, So when I actually look at my life, here's the thing. As much as some other people in my circle or extended life probably think I've lost the plot and I'm too woo-woo, or I'm into all this shit now. Oh, it's like, you should conspiracy guys, gone down the rabbit hole. It's like, mate, look at my life though. Now I actually have, again, I won't give details, but I similarly have a very wonderful family scenario. My actual sort of optimism for the world and the future is greater than it's ever been. I actually feel like the proof is in the pudding. It's in the eating of the pudding.
Yeah, the truth sets you free, and if you don't, these ideologies, you can judge someone by the fruits of their labor. And you have, let's say, these political guys or comedians or philosophers or whatever. I say, if their philosophy and their truth was so good, why were they cokeheads or rapists or child molesters, and why did they fucking blow their brains out? Or anything like that. It's just if you separate those things, then you remove the human factor and the quality of life factor, which is the purpose, to dehumanize and to make things very machine and insectoid. So if you get caught up in that, there's nothing, and you can always see if the ideology bears fruit. Or if it bears dog shit. I mean, look at the world. Can you name one single thing in your life that's improved? In the world's life,
sort of the mainstream general world. No, I think they all get worse. Yeah.
I can't think of one single thing. So you know what that means? Politics is fake. Technology is bad. I mean, all those things that you'll get called the Unabomber for saying. Or like an assassin for saying that stuff's really that's really the name of the game. And
Dude, have you ever seen this? We were all just talking a minute ago, obviously, about how a lot of the people presented, like the alt-right type people, they're obviously just figureheads themselves. And they're clearly on some limited high-up scenario. One of the reasons why I know those people, I mean, you can actually literally prove who they're funded by, and it's certain big groups that would shock a lot of the people who think they support them, because, spoiler, it's the same people doing all the stuff you think is ruining the world. So the reason why I know those people pay them is because you notice the number one metric, dude, that they all claim, which is the underpinning of that whole Steven Pinker-esque world of like, the world's only gotten better. Dude, if you ever go and look at what their foundational premise is, just that like the raw GDP and like how much an individual citizen earns in dollars per hour, if that has gone up, they view that as like that person's life got great. It's like, what are we, that is, what's crazy about that is you think that's some like, oh, that's just like a humanitarian way of looking. Well, that's the most demonic way to boil everything in all of human existence down to the dollar amount you make per hour. And that you think if this guy makes $2 instead of $1, he is fundamentally happier than like his ancestor. Like, what a fucking insane premise that is.
It's a joke. Another chase for celebrity, chase for money, the ultimate prison. The ultimate prison.
Oh, for sure.
They boil everyone down to either their salary or if you want to dehumanize them all the way so you can exterminate them, you boil them down as just another mouth to feed. Just another mouth to feed. It's all dehumanization every step of the way. But no one would know that. They're like, oh, we got to get this political party back so they can undo the stuff that they get back in office. They keep doing the same thing. It's even worse. 4 years later, 8 years later. Yes. Well, we got to get them back in so they can stop what happened 20 years ago. Next thing you know, your currency is worthless. Next thing you know, your children have to work just to pay the goddamn taxes. Oh my God. Next thing you know, you can't do anything without technology. Everything goes backwards. But who would believe it? They say, oh no, I can look at people dancing online all the time.
Exactly.
Oh, that's great. That's paradise. Oh, that's why we fought the Nazis. Right? Yeah. God, it's a joke. But again, who would believe it? People are too smashed. I mean, you go to school, you're screwed. What do you do? Like, how do you go to school? You get the whole programming session. It takes you 20 years to deprogram yourself fully.
Dude, I'll give you a great example of how, like, in my opinion, psyops work. So I'll give you like 2 quick layers now that a load of people listening will understand. So the most famous one is, if you ever bring up the point you're bringing up, which is that obviously school, as a feature, not a bug, is an indoctrination system for the superculture, or whatever you'd call it, right? Mm-hmm. It clearly is, and it always has been, and that was what it was from day one. And it's definitely, here's the joke, it's not a problem that at the end now the teacher's teaching your kids some fucked up stuff about sex. He was doing that all from day one. Like, it's the joke was he was always just filling that kid's head full of shite that you didn't even know about, and potentially went against your personal interests and the interests of your class, race.
If they did it too fast, people would have gotten the pitch.
That was the problem. They would be strung up. The problem was in the past, they were driving at the speed limit. Exactly. Now, they do just step into 5th gear. But the point I would make is this. You know, a lot of people have come to this realization recently. But if you ever say to someone, maybe we shouldn't send our kids to school, without even thinking, I've done it myself. You just hear the words come out of your mouth. You go, yeah, but then they won't be socialized properly. And I've noticed a lot of people have finally come to this epiphany. By socialised, you do just mean we're putting them in sort of like a children's prison, and they just have to learn who beats you up, who abuses you, what it's like to be abused, and then you go into your job, which is a slightly better version of that. Like, why would you want to socialise something like that? To me, that's again, this is... Have you noticed how the language is, it's always in the language, dude. That is anti-socialization. That is making someone actually scared of other humans. That is making someone think, I'm just thrown into a pit of other creatures my age that could do anything they want to me. Yeah, dude, you wouldn't want someone to learn that.
It's not, that's the label. That's the label they throw at you. They call you anti this, anti that. No. It's pro quality of life. Yes. Pro, your children not being whatever. So,
the key here is define yourself. Exactly. Don't agree to their defining aspect, right?
Yeah. You can never do that, because you lose. If you play that game, you lose. That's why you can't play. And people are complaining right now. Oh, this and this and this is happening in school. This and this is happening in school. Okay, good luck trying to stop it. Okay, why are you sending your children to school?
Yeah, agreed.
What do you want them to learn about this and that? I mean, we can go all the way, but I don't know if you should. But you can fill in the blanks with your own mind.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I'd rather raise I I don't know. I guess I'll just use the word weirdo. I'd rather raise a weirdo, but it's not going to happen. I'd rather raise a weirdo than raise someone that was in school being raped and abused, and that's all they know. And then it takes them 20 goddamn years to unlearn the things that the losers that are paid to sit and babysit your children all the time, the losers that are paid to do that, just to fill them with absolute crap. It's unbelievable. So it's always a false premise. It's always the false premise that people have their backs against the wall on. People arguing against this and that. You're gonna let strangers around your children full time while you're not there? What are you, crazy?
It's already an insane idea, isn't it? Before they even start pumping anything in there. Yeah, exactly. Oh, and also, by the way, on that line, when they say that, like, that'll be weird, it's like the whole premise of why we're doing it is because normal is now intolerable. What you call normal would be an intolerable existence, guys. I'm sorry, we're going to have to be weird compared to
25 years ago would get you freaking crucified.
Oh, it would. Yeah.
Oh, my God. Yeah, people don't understand. And they never will until it's too late. They'll understand it when their children are reporting them to the authorities.
Yeah, that's when it's too late,
they'll understand it.
I have a question for you along these lines then, because another thing I think we're in a similar position on, mate, is as much as it's brilliant when you hear all these talks and people who say there's an awakening and all this thing, dude, I don't get that sense. Like, I have to say, as I just explained there, where there's layers to how they put this psyop in, like, essentially, think of it this way, fans. They don't just make it so that there's a maze and you as the rat either get the cheese or exit the maze. They've made about 7 mazes within mazes, so you can think you've escaped the first maze. You can be the guy who escapes 2 mazes and teaches the other ones, you're out now, this is the real one, but you don't know you're in the third maze. Like, the joke is, it's like the Matrix movies. In that Matrix series, they did bake that concept into it. It's just the joke fiction, was right? They put that in the shit ones. Fiction. Yeah, they put that in the ones that no one wanted to see. But don't worry, we'll come back to that.
Science fiction.
But here's my question for you. Dude, as much as now you could find tons of people because of the internet who know all the like names of the conspiracy stuff, they could give all the terminology, they could even say things like limited hangout. But the joke is they really have just been caught in the next net. Like the joke is they get assigned their next hero, like we're saying. They get assigned their movement to resist from. They even get their own program, and you get your own YouTube channels to watch, your own debate shows. You even get your own fucking culture stuff. Yeah. They'll throw some stranger things out there to make you think, oh, this is a little bit like what I'm into. Like, the joke is you're still just in the system, aren't you?
Yeah, the system is there, and the end game isn't to build the maze for the people to get caught in. The end game is to have people build their own maze, just like you say.
Yes.
You build your own maze. You build your own prison. That's why if you don't check out, you're in prison forever. And if you do check out, at least you can, with the time you have left on this planet, considering how your lifespan has been reduced by decades, but considering the time that you have, you just have to praise and give energy and love and gratitude to the things that you want to see more of, instead of railing against the things that you want to see less of.
Yes, perfect.
That's the prison.
Yes.
People don't know. They're like, oh, you got to stand up and fight. Next thing you know, that guy's got a hole in his head.
Yes.
Are you crazy? You're fighting a tank? Oh, go ahead. Go fight a tank. So it's absolutely crazy. But that's the whole deal. People build their own matrix. They build their own prison. They become very adept at magnetizing suffering and spreading the infection. It's all spiritual in nature. It's spiritual warfare. So you can get everything you need from the Bible, but people don't like hearing that. It's kind of nerdy and it's kind of Bible something and it's kind of evangelical, right? Oh yeah, those guys molest you. They'll molest you. Oh my God, they don't know anything about real molestation. No one knows anything. Well, the only thing I know are the movies and the TV that they make and who you're supposed to hate. And it's just like all the books that were quote unquote warning us against our future. Yeah, right. People don't have any idea. It's a spiritual thing.
Yeah, that's even an angle.
You can't fight spiritual things with material weapons.
Yes,
you cannot do it.
No, that's even an angle that I often think is very misunderstood. Basically, if you don't know, right, there's another angle I could tie into this. So the classic one is books like Brave New World's a classic one, 1984, etc. When you read that and people go, wow, so on the nose, what a great prediction. It's like, there's no prediction involved, you fucking idiot. These guys literally knew the people. These guys are
the architects of the prison.
These were the people who came up, like the joke is, especially Brave New World, if you know who Aldous Huxley is, like, that's just basically him. Like, here's what me and my mates are going to do.
Oh, I know all about it.
There was even an interview I remember where he sort of bemoaned later that it came too quickly, and he thought sort of his, like, children wouldn't have to live through it or whatever. It's like, yeah, I bet you did, you cocksucker. I bet what happened there was you thought you were on the fucking lifeboat, didn't you, motherfucker? Yeah. But as usual,
he probably had a real friendly relationship with his children. Yeah. If you look at any of those guys, any of those weirdo freaks, any of those freaks, and I've said it a million times, and there aren't many people saying it, but if you want to look at a warning and a real warning and a real wake up call, the only person you can go to is C.S. Lewis, the last prophet of all this, especially in the space trilogy. Like the real 1984, the real Brave New World is book 3, That Hideous Strength. Who would believe that? That's like,
some amazing quotes in that. Yeah. Between that and the Screw Tape Letters, that guy was a fucking visionary, mate, for real. Yeah.
He was a bona fide biblical prophet. Yes. He was a bona fide prophet. And people always like, oh yeah, Aldous Huxley. I was like, yeah, he's that old chimo. Like, I give a shit, and I'll burn his books, piss on him too. I don't give a shit about his books. And I'm sure there's a history behind Orwell and Huxley. I mean, what's the point of even going down those rabbit holes? But I guarantee they'd make you puke. Guaranteed. Sure. It's all the same. These people they're all actors. They're all. Even Freud, you look at his nephews and his grandchildren.
Yes,
they're all chimos. They designers of propaganda, chimos, rapists, cokeheads, murderers. He burns in hell. Huxley burns in hell. Orwell, those guys burn in hell.
By the way, that's something I want to ask you about, basically. Like I said about, like, the psyop angle, it feels like a lot of people get to claim, like, well, I'm not like the normies. But really the joke is they're just like another layer of that. And in fact, they've been contained.
Neo-normie.
They've been kept within their next little sort of shell, as it were, or layer of the onion or whatever. Right. But when you get this scenario occur like that, I've noticed it's just super common that, like, people basically, like, they really believe that they essentially, that one of the number one tricks of that approach I've noticed, I'll just say it like this, it's the notion that there are white hats among the mainstream. Like, here's the problem. I think I have the totally opposite take, and I get the sense you might be on the same train, because basically here's the problem. You know how they'll make a movie? Dude, I'll give you the example I said earlier. The Matrix, what a great example. How about The Truman Show? These are movies, right, that in theory, if you're super deep in the rabbit holes, you're like, look at all the truth hidden. Yeah, but here's the problem. The truth is always hidden in a deceptive way, if anything, to make sure you don't take that from it as a normal person viewing it. And then secondly, and this is the key thing to me, there never is a true white hat message as far as I can tell. To me, it's nearly always, if anything, it's a black pill message.
You cannot escape.
Exactly. Dude, the number one, if I had to describe the number one theme of, like, superhero fantasy, things where good battles evil, is that he can only battle that evil because he's the most powerful, like, superhero being, and even then he might die at the end. So you, the inference is, you, a pleb, don't even waste your time. You'd never have a chance. That's the vibe I get from those movies. It's not like, we can beat these guys. It's like, if anything, you can't. That's almost the vibe of the Matrix. No. It's like, you should want to be in the Matrix and have the, you don't want to eat gruel, don't you want the steak again? That's almost the takeaway of the Matrix series.
Yep, it's all hidden nihilism, and these people are the architects of ruin that come and they poison people's minds and get them to anticipate their chains and their prison and no way out. And there's never, like, look at anything in science fiction or any of the warning books. At the end, there's always the boot stomping on your head. Yeah, like you can try to be a superhero materially. You'll just get a bullet in the head, or you'll get a freaking heart attack gun. The only things are in the supernatural. The only power you have is in the spiritual realm in yourself, and in that energy. Like, the only power you have in life is what you think and how you feel. You have no other power of anything at all. People will tell you, like, oh, the founding fathers, this and that. Dude, that was freaking, I mean, who knows how long ago it was. It could have been 100 years ago. We wouldn't know. It's very easy to reset history. Very easy. So all of these, and you know what? Oh, yeah, there's really positive stuff coming out of Hollywood. Yeah.
It's a good joke, isn't it? I know.
Yeah, that's a good joke. You look at the background of any Hollywood actors that you grew up with, and dark. You would puke your guts out knowing what they did and what they've done and honestly what they've been through and how they were tortured themselves. So it's nothing personal, but it's just people to believe that there is some white hack white hat people there fighting for humanity. I'm just, oh my God, it's Hollywood. It's an illusion. It's an absolute joke. All of your heroes that acted in movies did things that if you saw them on the streets, you would drive over them with your car. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Yes.
There's the good guys, the superheroes. You ever try to fight a tank? You ever try to fight a mosquito with a disease on it? You ever try to fight a tick with a disease on it that reduces your lifespan? You can't fight those things. You can only fight your own thoughts, yourself, your own quality of life. And if you want to get into God or anything like that, you can only make peace with how wretched existence can be with your permission in this world, which is lower than hell, in my opinion. Because the things that happen in this world don't even happen in hell.
No, exactly.
Like the injustice and the torture of innocence doesn't even happen in biblical hell. This place is lower than hell. So,
let me ask you a question connected to that. Do you get a vibe, like, do you actually think let's say you could do it either way. You could either say there are actual like evil entities, or it's just some sort of an evil influence that, let's say, even people give into, or something like that. I mean, I'd even tie it to that whole thing, which I know is very popular now because of the whole Lord of the Rings angle, where everyone's getting that classic C.S. Lewis quote that I love about how evil can't create; it can only sort of like destroy what someone else created, basically. That's another one of my sort of like spiritual principles of the world. Like, as you're saying, the way you actually battle these things is you withdraw from their bullshit world and you just create yourself in the purest manner. You create things that are fun, that are meaningful, that give me that like do things in life, that express things. Whereas if you notice,
if people aren't attracted to it, fuck them.
Exactly, because here's the thing:
if they don't align to it, fuck them.
This is the interesting detail that I think if people understand this, it'll open their eyes so much to the way the world works. Because here's the premise that also doesn't work. If things were as they're presented to us, right, that it's like evil's in charge, they're all evil from top to bottom in Hollywood, every single field of industry, then logically, right, and they have total control and they can censor everything. Well, then logically, right, they would never need me and you. They'd never need anyone cool. They'd never need a good... They do, though, because I think the C.S. Lewis principle applies to. They need us for exactly that reason. They need us to come up with a funny joke, with a thing here, with some
pain.
And then they can take
amplifiers
that.
Of their
Hence why you notice they just buy the property from you. So I'll buy that thing you made there, kid. And then as soon as he buys it, that fucker just makes it some evil. Like, we are the machine that powers what they're doing. Like, they do need us.
Oh yeah, everyone, they believe that they're just the peons and just the masses and just absolute nonsense. But if people individually didn't have ultimate power, then they wouldn't be so heavily assailed upon.
Exactly.
They would just
why would they spam you with propaganda if they'd won?
Oh yeah, and it doesn't fit with the message out of Hollywood or wherever, or the white hats. It just doesn't fit. It's a joke. It's death hilarity. It's an absolute joke, and they just want you to build your own prison because, again, like you're saying, they cannot create. Evil doesn't create, and evil is very, very, very easy to destroy. Very, very easy to destroy. But people believe in it so deeply and give it so much power. It rules them totally from without and from within. And then next thing you know, they're full dead machine in the machine, spreading their deadness, spreading the Wetiko or Satan or whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
They become carriers of the injustice and the machines and the mechanisms used to destroy them and their gene pool. People don't understand. And clearly, as you see from history or from the sacred text or from the Bible or whatever, these things you cannot stop. You can't stop the world from being the world.
No.
You just can't. You can only prevent yourself from destroying your own soul and infecting those around you with your own soul destruction. That's the only power you have in this world. And if the majority or even a small percentage, I have no idea, could get on this page, the evil would be annihilated overnight. Yes. It would be gone. But good luck trying to get people to believe that and say, "Oh no, it's this guy tried to do something good and he got killed. You can't do anything." And I mean, there's a relative truth to that. If you fight fire with fire, then you're gonna get. You
can't go head on. Yeah, exactly. You can't. It's like I always describe it like this, mate. This is how I describe Twitter. When someone goes like, "Twitter's just totally totalitarian and censors," it's like, You can't just walk into a mafia-run bar and go, you know what, fuck the mafia, they're all corrupt. Yeah, they're going to get you outside and beat your head in. But you know what, if you walk into that mafia bar and just have a beer, they'll let you have a beer, but understand it's always a mafia bar. So in my opinion, if you interact with the mainstream, you have to know that before you go over through the fucking door, as it were. Like, you cannot take them head on, because as we were alluding to earlier, dude, head on is what they want. If you notice, they want you, before you've ever been forced to out yourself publicly, to tell everyone who your circle is, what your plans are, and then they want you to openly, by name, go after who you think is evil. Because if you do all of those things, it's the easiest person to neutralize. It's the easiest person to demonize. Yeah. Whereas if you did it in a subtle manner, mate, it would be a nightmare for them. They'd have a really hard time. They're not really good with nuance.
No, it's a real joke, and they require everyone's permission and everyone's constant vigilance to destroy themselves to make this whole machine work. Yes. And I've never been warlike, and I don't consider myself a warrior against any of these things. The only warrior I fight against, as a warrior I fight against, is my own stupidity and unworthiness and lack of humility and all that. I can only try to clean myself up. Everyone else, I mean, hey, if people are receptive to my journey, then so be it. Maybe you can reverse some of the abuse that you've suffered in your life, and then maybe you can make a better life for your children or for yourself or for people that watch what you do, whatever the hell. But people don't understand there's no such thing as fighting in the realm of politics and fighting, and it's absolutely crazy. Politics is so insane. It's a joke. It's a joke. It's a big joke, and either
you nailed it earlier, dude. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. When you said earlier, like the real problem is this: politics presents as everyday, mundane. What are we going to do about X? But the reality, like you said earlier, is it's actually a spiritual battle. It's more about like what values 100%. Do you represent? Like who are you going to allow to have say over your life? It is a spiritual battle. You can't fight it on the mundane level.
No, either you worship life or you worship death. And if you're
which is amazing if you think of the context of the last 3 years, dude, like that, you could never be more apparent than it is now, could it?
Oh, and all of these things, all of your questions are answered. What you should or shouldn't oppose, it doesn't have anything to do with your personal tastes or your identity or any of that. It has to do with whether you worship life or you worship death. Whether you worship the devious insectoid philosophy of machines and demons, or if you worship life and freedom, at least in your own mind, either those things, and all of your questions and all of the litmus test of your politics is answered automatically. It's either you worship life or you worship death. But again, who's going to believe that? They're going to say, "Oh, how are you going to stop this? How are you going to stop that?" So I'll say, I'm just not going to be around it. Keep that shit away from me and my kids. Fuck you. Your kids? Yeah, that's your problem.
Something you just touched on there that I've also noticed you have an interesting take on, because I've come to a similar spot. Like, basically, I described it in the past interview this way, right? You know how one of the first things that is actually a mechanism in the conspiracy world is that as soon as you get into it, because a lot of it comes from the 80s with the Christian evangelists who were super into that angle, because it was their own thing of like, it's the devil doing it all. I've got to say, though, a lot of that shit has aged very well. Like, I used to think that was silly at the time. Now I'm sort of like, where are all those old videos? Can I pull some of those up? Some of those guys were spitting, But anyway, when they did it that way, though, it meant that as a result, like, the first layer you encounter is this idea of like, oh yeah, it's all just fucking evil people. And the key angle is it's always the outrage angle. It's like, and they're abusing kids. They're taking your tax money. They're like ruining your country. Like all the buttons that you could push, right, to hit on someone. Yes. They're going to hit all those buttons for you in that regard. But
weaponized empathy.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. But one of the things I've noticed is that actually itself is a bit of a fraudulent dichotomy, because the premise they present, you'll notice, is either, or in their world, in the evil world, all humans are just useless heap of trash, like you say, who can just be disposably used or crucially used as fuel for a machine to accomplish almost like spiritual tyranny. But the other side, dude, the other side is just as bad and just as lacking compassion. The other side is the Christian angle that goes, we're all innocent, they're doing all of this to us, and we take no responsibility for all the times we opt into the system and even prop it up. Like, that's one thing I've really come around on, dude. Is like, I think essentially in this realm, all of us earn wisdom. We earn the place we are. We earn happiness. We earn the life that
usually
we want.
through suffering.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So as a result,
suffering.
the notion that like everyone is innocent and that it's not their fault, that is itself demonic in my opinion. No one did all that stuff to us the last few years. A lot of us did that to ourselves. A lot of us caved ourselves. And as a result, like, I don't think it's the case that like every person's in it. Like some people, they're getting fucked over, I'm sorry, as a consequence of their choices and actions, for real.
Oh, it always requires your permission, and I understand what you're saying about if people are just either innocent or everything is being done to them, or being just reduced to animals, like the insectoid philosophy that they push out, like everyone's just an animal. I mean, if everyone did what they wanted, they'd be raping and killing all the time, just like the movies. Yeah, sure. The movies are like real life. When's the last time you saw real life like a movie?
It's true.
It's just it's a joke, and I'm not a theologian. I mean, I'd like to be, but I'm still sort of new at this. You know, I haven't really been digging into this until I myself was murdered and thrown under the bus and laughed at, and of course also brought up from the ground, supported enough to raise a family by people who were sort of dedicated to my to my philosophy, or rather my comedy, or rather my I don't know if you perseverance in the face of absolute destruction, me not destroying myself given the opportunity. I guess you could say it like that. But it's there's always conflicting things, and I'm not C.S. Lewis, and I'm not too knowledgeable about these things. I try to grasp for these truths just either by prayer or by meditation, because you can only read so many books, and you can only know so many things, or be subject to people's interpretations for so long, until you force yourself to be subject to your own interpretation of these things, and to try to not be completely influenced by the powers that be. And I don't know how to reconcile any religious aspect of the evil of the world, or innocence, or anything like that. I don't consider myself a smart man. I consider myself a big dumbass. But I think that's the first step in being receptive to real wisdom, is knowing that you're literally stupid. People that think they're smart, at least in my experience, are the dumbest in the world. And the people that think they're the smartest always try to manipulate and control people the most. So I that's never been my thing, to alter other people in a negative way, or in any way at all. I've been on on camera for a couple thousand hours, altering myself in public.
Absolutely, yeah.
With my real fucking name and my real face. And I've just been altering myself. And if people see that a maniac like myself can come back from complete desolation, then anybody, even the biggest moron in the world, can come back from anything at all. And that's the real faith, because it's not hope. You wait around and hope things will get better, you'll end up in a gas chamber. You know what I'm saying? Hope is for
sure.
fucking suckers. It's faith, and it's the knowing that there is goodness, and that there is good, and that evil is weak, and it's only made strong with the permission of the inhabitants of this world. And it's hard to reconcile the chaos and the torture of innocence in this world in a religious way, or theos, whatever philosophy, whatever the hell.
Sure.
I have no idea how to come to grips with those. So I don't spend my time refuting these things that were written thousands of years ago. I don't try to refute them, but I just try to understand them, and understand their psyops and their conspiracies that are in between the lines of every page and any holy book that's ever been written.
Do you somehow essentially then like tie together the C.S. Lewis? Essentially, is it a bit like the C.S. Lewis angle? Do you think that, for example, in any like classic religious text that endures and seems, we'll take the premise of what my relative said, seems to have like an outcome on people's lives and make their lives better, and there's something to it. Do you think essentially like there's an essence to it that is pure, that has something to it, like some wisdom, but some of it was maybe perverted? Like obviously it goes out to say, I'm sure there was some psyops fucking written into the Bible, maybe even the premise of the Bible's a psyop, but do you think there is like an essence that you can still get to, like if you go if you pan in the muck, as it were?
Oh yeah, 100%. All you have to do is read Proverbs, and you'll say, Jesus Christ. You say, these people were struggling with the same evil we are today, thousands of years ago. They were struggling with themselves, struggling with their own proclivities, with their own warped vision of the world, or what a man is supposed to do, or whatever the hell you are. There's definitely truth in these texts, and the only proof you need is how often they're ridiculed. That's the only reason. That's the only evidence you need.
That's a general rule for the world, if people haven't noticed. Whatever the mainstream ridicules almost certainly has something to it, but I call them electric fences. The ridicule is an electric fence to make you touch it one time and go, oh, I don't want to be called an X, Y, or Z, or, oh, you believe in that? Like, that alone will keep most people out. That's why it's the electric fence.
Ridicule is a very powerful tool to keep the feeble-minded away from the truth. It's very easy to flame people away from wisdom, because most people, and I'm not I'm reading the Bible. It's only kind of recently when I said, look, I've got a family here. I can't just be a busted maniac for my whole life. I actually have to start. And it's not like I'm going to read the philosophers, because they're all shit. I'm not going to watch movies because they're not going to teach you anything, and I'm not going to. Who am I going to listen to from the internet that's going to teach me anything? Jordan Peterson, what's he going to teach me? None of those bullshit artists are going to teach me anything. They're all either publicity stunt, con men, celebrity chasers. They're all just the same, worse losers than even the machines that run this world. And so I was. It's at least in my experience, I was ready for it when I was ready for it. And when I picked it up and I started reading things, I was sort of spiritually intelligent enough to start seeing patterns in my own life and say, oh my God, I was like, that's me. I was like, that's bad. This is it's wicked, or this mindset is defeating. And, you see a lot of that wisdom, but you have to be ready and receptive to it. Because if you're closed and you're shut down, it's just going to be words written by some old asshole thousands of years ago.
Yes.
You're just going to dismiss it. But a lot of the world's ills would be solved if there was more wisdom being gleaned from the elders from thousands of years ago that saw wickedness even beyond the scale that we're seeing now. But now we're getting to that biblical wickedness. We're living through it right now, like hardcore atrocity. And people aren't ready for it, because if they miss one day of work, they won't be able to make their mortgage. If the wife isn't working freaking 15 hours a day, they wouldn't be able to keep the house. And if their wife wasn't working, or if both parents weren't working, or whatever the hell you are, then you have to work. And you have to send your children to daycare. What's it, $1,500 freaking dollars a month or something like that? So either way, you go broke, and you're kept away from that wisdom through financial and material hardship, which all the time it requires your permission to participate in every time.
Absolutely. Yeah, the other thing as well, I would say, I think is quite interesting on this angle, is whenever it comes to the idea of like wisdom, like encountering information and it actually having the effect on you of seeming wise, like making you have an epiphany, it breaks through and something. Here's the funny thing. I actually think that most people have it like the wrong way around. They basically act like the knowledge is the key and they're the lock. So they put the key in the lock and they go, it doesn't fit. It's the other way around. You're the key. What happens is when you have changed enough, you will come back to the same piece of wisdom that was frivolous and stupid X years ago. And suddenly it is the most profound thing you've ever read. And you're like, there's no way I read this last time, because you were different, right?
Yes. And that's sort of like meeting something halfway. Like you reach back to what you thought you knew, and the man that you are now can finally turn worthless information and knowledge into wisdom, something that you can actually be made better from, and in turn not infect anybody else with your disease. It's really a true thing. I hear it all the time. People that read the Bible or read the Quran, anything, they're all very similar. Things that they read 30 years ago, they read now and they finally understand it. When you're not ready for something, you're not ready for something. So the world makes sure you're never ready for it.
Oh, that's deep as fuck, yeah.
And people don't realize that. They're like this, oh yeah, if it really mattered, then we wouldn't have this evil and whatever. The same old crap. But people don't understand, again, it's the self-actualization, the self-development, the spiritual athletics in one's own mind that make you worthy of real knowledge. And when you're not worthy, you don't get it. not you don't, the wisdom, knowledge anyone can get, information anyone can get. It's if you're not worthy for wisdom, you're not going to see it, even if it puts a bullet in the back of your head up against a wall. You'll never see it. And so people worry too much about changing the world, or worry about changing other people.
Yes.
You're fucked. That's another prison. If you don't change yourself first, you're going to infect everyone with the disease that you're at, where you're at that time. So that's where you got to be. People have to be careful. Well, they're not really in spreading their own ideology. That's just worthless. People don't understand. And you graduate to these things. You have to. It's because initiation is erased from our culture. The initiation from, let's say, boyhood to manhood, it's completely erased. And if you have to self-initiate and find ways to auto-initiate, and that is the process that you're thinking of. And when you are initiated into the wisdom, you are finally worthy to take it in, and it's not just words on a page. But who's going to believe that? They're like, yeah, but what about what this guy is doing? You gotta vote with your vote. You gotta talk with. You gotta stand. Oh my God! Look at how everything has improved in the last however many years. Yeah, voting. Yeah. I know what I'll vote for. I'll vote for fucking wearing knee pads. Are you crazy voting for somebody? It's a joke.
You know what's funny, by the way, dude, is like, here's what's also amazing to me. If you ever know the actual people who, I won't say they have all the power. Like I say, I think there's way more layers, and there's a lot more puppet shows than we're aware of in the, like, I'm not fucking super connected.
Time for the puppet show.
I'm some plebeian on the internet like the rest of you. So, like, within the world of, like, some of them do appear to have some power in this world. All I'll say is this. If you ever look at their actual actions, they know what we're talking about. Like, if you know anything about how secret societies and the occult work, it's exactly what we just described. You don't just, like, instantly get given all this info on day one. They actually have, like, you have to
prove yourself.
Yeah, and then you get the information that's supposed to be, like, the sort of mind blower after you've sort of gotten grounded in that field. And also, they don't just instantly go, right, you're on level 3, go to level 4. It's the premise of, like, when are you ready for level 4 based on the rest of your life experience? So, like, they know the techniques here. They've gotten the underpinnings here. They're just using it in a dark way, obviously.
That's technology.
Yeah, it is.
You call it white magic, you call it black magic. It is a technology.
Yes.
It is a strategy of graduating from a creature that just does whatever the TV tells him to someone that can actually see clearly real atrocity. And only someone who is deeply familiar with serious, real, flabbergasting atrocity can really see the wicked devices that are in play in this world. But who has the fortitude to see those things? Their empathy is hijacked. Their empathy is weaponized. They're turned into soldiers of a cause that only brings suffering and destruction, and the reversal of everything that's good, the inversion of everything that's good. And yeah, these people, they do have these things in, they know what they're doing. I don't study any secret societies or cults or anything like that, because that's the fastest death sentence you can have in this world.
Yeah.
But the technique of it's not even about a secret society. I mean, it is these days now, but back then when you had let's say small villages and shamans, you had people that specialized in graduating people to manhood and to being receptive to wisdom. Now those people are run out, and everyone spits at it. It's just those things that have been removed. The power of sort of transforming archetypes within oneself through initiation and elders and sacred spaces, like we were talking about before. If you annihilate those things, there is no hope for anybody at all to graduate into something better than an animal. No hope at all. There's no hope. There's never been any hope. There's only faith in those things. And if you're not familiar with it, you can never ever see the truth of yourself and how much power you have to simply make your quality of life better, and in doing so, make existence itself a better place. I mean, the real abomination to the creation of this world is suffering itself. It's and self-imposed suffering. That's the real abomination, and it's the real sin against the Creator, is to despair and to not believe in anything good. That's the real prison. And
nihilism and blackpilling is that's basically you just killing yourself and everyone around you at that point.
Killing, infecting everyone yourself, alienating yourself from your friends and your family, becoming a wreck, getting blown out on drugs or whatever the hell because you can't handle your own existence. These things are by design. Oh my God. But It's been a quest of mine to initiate myself in everything that I've been raped and deprived of my whole life. And because I mean, if you want to do something right, it looks like you just got to do it yourself,
Yes.
But
On every level, by the way.
Like,
here's what's wild. Initially, that would have been off-putting to me if I'd have said that to myself 20 years ago. You're gonna have to figure it all out yourself. I'd go like, bloody hell, I can't do that.
I'd be
but then here's the key thing: once you know it is the only game in town, you just embrace it, don't you? It's all, like the joke is like spiritual truth is just so obvious when you know how to see it and you have eyes to see that you're the only one who could figure it out for yourself. Like in this scenario, you absolutely do have to initiate yourself, figure out the next levels yourself. And the joke is, if you ever look into it, everyone great who ever accomplished anything in these domains was always doing this. Like that's why the real joke is this. The guy who says the really profound shit and figures it out, the second guy after him goes, write that down, we're making a religion out of this. Like, that's how they ruin it every time. Like, that's how they take the technology and fuck it up. Because you know the premise.
Always co-opted.
This is one thing I never understood until I'd say like 5 years ago, mate. It's the concept of unearned wisdom. I used to think, and this is how you know I was just a little Western consumer like everyone else. I used to think, look, if that shit was true, all that like Eastern stuff, it'd be on the TV. Like we'd all be reading books and it'd just be presented to us. It's like, no, that's a consumer, you idiot. Like, it's not like they're offering you like 500 satellite TV channels. In this scenario, if someone really went into the forests in fucking India and spent 30 years meditating and became like a different person in their mind and had totally transcendent thoughts, why the fuck would they then get up and come to like Madison Square Garden and go like, no, buy your tickets, I'm going to be telling everyone the truth? No, they would actually know that, like, mate, do you want these truths? You're going to have to earn them like I did. You're going to have to go out there and pay a price, and you're going to have to... And guess what? Sometimes part of earning this wisdom is you actually hopefully transcend to the point you don't want to go back to the beast system and take the dollars. Surely that, you know what I said earlier about the philosophy? Surely anyone's philosophy that in theory brings them enlightenment, but they then sell for money, that surely invalidates the philosophy. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, you know someone's a fraud when they're selling wisdom. Yeah. Exactly. They're selling things. I've made it a point to be in public for free. Let's say on Twitch, and it's not like I just transform myself. I'm not pretending to put out wisdom.
Sure.
I'm not pretending to be smart. I'm the biggest dumbass that there is.
That's the beauty. We can all do it. Yeah. By the way, anyone watching this episode, understand we're actually not saying we're elites. It's the opposite. We're plebeians like you.
Oh my God. Yeah. I'm just a big dumbass, a big dope. It's all that. But I don't put wisdom behind a paywall, because that's how you know someone is a real fraud. Because people do it. I do it for myself. I do it for myself. I try to transform myself. I don't do it for other people. Of course, I'm there for the people that helped me through this freaking stage of my life. I'm there. And I do my best. But I do it for myself. I do it to stay out of jail. If I didn't, sort of transform myself in public for thousands of hours this past half decade or something, I would have either ended up dead or in jail. 100%. 100%. Yes. I'd be either dead or in jail. So this wasn't done so people could throw me money. It was only through, the kindness, the kindness in the receptive hearts of the people who still give a damn about what I do. But it was to keep myself from self-destructing completely. And in turn, I've become a completely different person and fit. I do my best to be fit and worthy of wisdom. I do my best. And I think it's been a sort of a profound transformation, considering how busted and blown out and freaking hating of life I used to be back in the heyday from 6 or 7 years ago, whatever. I'm very much a different person, but I did it. I had to do it for myself, because otherwise it would be a con. It would be a scam. It would be a con. It would be the worst of the worst. So I tried to do my best.
I also think as well, like, I think this is another almost principle of like whatever the world is, right? Which is basically, the old, it's now a hackneyed phrase because people have overused, where they go like, you either win or you learn. Because the idea is if you take a loss or, you have an obstacle, in theory, it's supposed to be like how you improve to overcome that terror. But there is sort of like a truth to that. Like, for example, in my opinion, everything that initially seems bad as like a challenge in the world actually is genuinely an invitation to level your shit shit up. So I'll give you an example right now. If someone's been following stupid news things roughly this year, you don't have to follow the day to day. You're going to know these trends. If you hear all these stories, there's going to be food shortages, or you hear like, oh my God, not enough baby formula, right? You know what that is? That's the universe throwing you a bone if you're a mother. Might not look into what baby formula is. You might look at it and go, wait a minute, what the fuck's in this? Why was I ever given my kid? That's where you learn. Same thing if they go food shortages. Well, spoiler, like you just alluded to earlier. Well, if you actually look into the food rabbit hole, they've they put all the fucking nitrogen in as the fertilizers. That's reduced all the like nutrient count of the soil, which then means that. So if you actually look into it, these are all fucking like, this is like, again, like the universe nudging you like, look, they're going to think this is bad, but you could actually level your shit up. This is your chance to sort of take note of what we're doing. Like, in a way, there's almost a compassion to that dude.
You know the ingredients, you know that, right? Finally people are waking up that they don't have to be force fed by the restaurant industry. People don't understand. And the worthiness and the cleansing that comes from being worthy of the wisdom is extreme soul-crushing pain and suffering. At least in my experience, it's come to where I was so filled with pain, I became pain itself. And then I was receptive to getting to another stage of my life instead of succumbing to the death machine of the world. It requires an extreme amount of work. And a lot of times if you're dumb and you're not receptive, it's going to be extreme. It's going to be extreme suffering. And I think that might be the case with, I think that might be a sort of a universal truth. I think it might take extreme suffering, because it's like you can, the cleansing of oneself and the admitting to oneself that a lot of things that you believed are actually lies. It takes a real kick to the, it takes a kick to the balls that lifts you out of your shoes and hits your head on the fucking ceiling. You know what I'm saying? It takes an incredible crucifixion to get through that sort of thing. But most people are destroyed when they're face to face with that machine. Most people really, really just give up and not look to themselves instead of jeering at the sky, shooting a gun at God, or shaking their fist at the world because it raped them. It's kind of easier to do that than to shake your fist at yourself.
There's something about your videos that I've actually, people will know this about my work. I've told them about it, but I've never actually told you. You were the person who inspired me to do this. Actually, I took this lesson from your videos, right? This is the angle. And if people are listening, this is a really useful angle, because I can tell you in my own life and career, I've had a lot of suffering and heartache from not heeding this lesson that I learned from your content, which is this. Because I used to think to myself, like, first of all, I was in psyop like the rest of them. Oh, there's this evil and all these evil people. I must battle them because I'm a good person. And since I'm, for example, someone who believes in telling the truth, I should just explicitly say every single thing I think and who I don't like in this scenario. And in doing so, I paint an enormous target on my back. Everyone attacks me. I use all the words that get you in all the trouble, that get you censored, get you attacked. And what I learned from your content that I noticed was you were having these 10-minute monologues in which I knew exactly what you were referencing. And some of it was even fairly topical things and big things, but you did it in an abstract way where you reduced it to the principle or the concept of what you were doing. You didn't, and this is the key, because I've looked into the topic of the occult. Essentially, the occult, one of the main aspects is just language control, because as you alluded to earlier, what you can say is what you can think. And what you can think is what you can conceive of. And if you can't even conceive of certain things, you are already a prisoner, or
That's why they erase words.
Yeah, you're already going to be led down their line. So actually, language literally is a form of magic, because it changes what that symbol means in your mind.
It certainly is a technology.
So here's my term I use. I'll give you an example. If during the last 3 years, instead of discussing the concept of governments controlling your movements, or how we interact with the premise of disease in the world, if you keep it abstract enough, you can have all those convos. If you just say one of those words we all know, I call them cursed terms. They've already charged that with the evil magic, mate. Yep. The second you use that term yourself, you just invite upon yourself.
Eyes on you.
Exactly. It's at that moment, exactly, the eye of Sauron comes on you. They all descend on you. Everyone has been programmed to attack you.
Your friends have been programmed.
Your friends have been programmed not to defend you because they know you've crossed the line. that the secret to all of this is understanding the power of language. Because if you do and you make it abstract, you can say anything, mate. Like, I'm not going to say the context. I'm not going to give it away. But essentially, if people don't know, I have tweeted over the last 3 years things against certain medical treatments, certain political things. I've never got in trouble for any of those things, dude. Because what I nailed is, like I say, you showed me sort of how to make it just the principle behind it, and you could discuss that all day long.
Oh yeah, I'm. That's just how I do, and I have no choice because I've gone through the ringer. And
I can tell. You know what it's like to get harangued by saying one of those things, right? Or angle when you sort of give them the fodder they can use against you, right?
Oh yeah, I know all about it. I've lived it, and that's how you can tell if someone stands for something. If you speak the language of your oppressors, you become a slave master yourself. Yes. And people don't just like you're saying, people don't really know that language is technology and thoughts are technology. There's a reason why the words that we're looking for, let's say a fortitude of self-knowledge or a spiritual fortitude, there's no fucking word for it in the English language. I wonder why.
Yep.
Big surprise, huh? There's a word for, what kind of things you like to suck. And stuff like that. Of course, there's many words for that. There's definitely a lot of words on what you like to suck on. But how spiritually, armored you are. Oh, no word for that though. Strangely enough. So no, these people they're sorcerers of technology, sorcerers of magic. You can always look back to the Bible or any really sacred text because they're all pretty similar. You can always look back to the technology of those that were cast out of paradise. I guess we could just put it that way. That's the only power that these people have, the technology to influence what you can think and how you can express yourself. And if there's no shaman, there's no shamanistic initiations, there's no sacred spaces, there's no reverence for elders that have been murdered but still remained and not become murderers themselves. There's no words for that. But you know what? Hey, that's not going to stop me. I'll fucking make up the goddamn words myself.
Sure.
You have to.
You know what?
That's why I've rambled many hours in things that could be considered nonsense. Yep.
I've got an idea I want to bring to you because it's actually a brand new idea. I have actually never heard this premise myself. I heard it on a different podcast. It was a really good, interesting one, actually. Right? Basically, the premise that, especially within the Abrahamic religions, there is a massive prohibition in theory, keyword theory, against idolatry, essentially, like depicting anything that is some of God's creation. I mean, the Muslims obviously go the furthest with it, but people don't know. In theory, it's one of the commandments. Like, you're not supposed to ever represent God or things. And one of the points this person made, it was actually on like the Solbra cast or something, right? It was just an interesting side point. I've never thought this. I thought it'd be right in your wheelhouse. They even said, if you think about it, almost all media now is some form of idolatry like that. It's all about making for you representations of things that are real and then having them act out certain things. And essentially, one of the reasons this really fucks with me and my worldview is another thing I've started to do in the process you're describing of essentially trying to unlearn all the things they put in your brain through your whole life from day one is you even have to get questioned simple things like, did any of these historical events ever take place? Why even would, for example, someone show me hundreds of movies about police procedurals? Why would I need all that? Because essentially what you're doing is you're creating a sort of virtual reality in my mind where I think I've lived lifetimes. I think I've known people. I think I even know what fields and professions do that I've never interacted with ever, Charles. I've never ever met a firefighter. I've never met someone who was like a surgeon. Yeah, but I think I do. I think I know those people.
Films too.
In a way, and I've been in fake wars. Dude, the joke is I've got an entire world that I think is somehow one-to-one relates to a real world, and some of it is pure fantasy. In fact, they want me in this fantasy world. Yeah. What do you think on this topic? Because when I look at the world, that is actually, I would say that's the number one issue, is that they can create like a whole conception of a world before you ever get to touch a world.
Oh yeah, well that's technology, the technology of deception, and the technology of the fabrication of illusion, and the technology of giving your permission to be abused. And it's really the truth. They wouldn't make a movie on it if it didn't somehow have a purpose to control you. It wouldn't be made. And everything in there, like police procedure rules and all that stuff. What does it teach you? It teaches you that no matter what, no matter how smart you are, yeah, you can never get away from the cops. They're too smart for you. They're too smart for you. You can look at anything at all, anything you're going to empathize with. It's going to give you a self-defeatist philosophy, invisibly, which is you're being raped. Essentially, you're being raped without knowing it. In ritually, every single time you turn on the TV, every time you hear a word, every time you see an image, every time you see someone die in full color, you're watching a snuff film. Who would believe that, though?
No, you are on some level, yeah. Because the key thing 100%. To remember, and this is where it blows my mind if I think of this, is when I do just think of someone like 200 years ago in my position, it's like they would never have seen these things. Like you wouldn't even be, the genius is you couldn't trick even the yokel peasant fuck that they'd all pretend like the pinkers of the world. You wouldn't trick that guy into this scenario. He's never seen all these, like he would naturally be standoffish at certain types of people, or he would say, "Oh, that looks a bit wrong to me," because he hasn't, like, because as you say, by the way, one of the other things they do with all these shows is they condition you to accept as a given premise things you've never thought about. I'll give you an example. One of the ones I noticed that was really disturbing was how, you know, every single cop movie about a hero cop always has this following sequence: "You're getting too close to the case, we're gonna have to pull you off." And then what that teaches you is this, that hero cops, even when they no longer even are a cop with jurisdiction, will still illegally, like, enter your house, like, get evidence, like, fucking do. Essentially, if they just know that you're guilty, which is almost, if you think of it, almost like a fucking spiritual judgment at this point, because you don't have the evidence, then they're almost, like, obliged to create the evidence and fabricate it because they know you're wrong. Like, that's the opposite of what we think a cop is. Like, you're presenting some really fucked up angle, and worse, you get me to cheer for it. The joke is, I'll be the one getting investigated by the corrupt cop, but yeah, you've tricked me into sort of pulling for that guy.
Absolutely. They get you to root for the anti-hero.
Yes,
they get you to root for the anti-hero and to fight against everything that creates a peaceful society. You fight against it through ends justifies the means. It's the same bullshit witchcraft that the media was invented for in the first place, to inseminate and to make an inception into your mind of those things, and it creates you. It creates a Frankenstein in everybody.
Yes,
it creates a golem. It's like the fabrication of a golem.
It's why, by the way, even though this will sound like I'm veering into a culture war topic, I'm actually doing it for a very specific reason. It's one of the reasons why I think they have to inundate media with all of the, let's just say the demographic push would be the clever way to say it, right? Because what they want you to do, again, is that is supposed to, for every person who watches that, that's the world to them. Like, it's normal that this is exactly the demographic breakdown we have of these specific
It's always been this way.
Yeah. That's clearly what they're doing with that. And the fact, even what people don't think about is this. The guy who goes, well, what's the big deal? The big deal is the kid who's 8 watching that now thinks that's just the world, mate. He doesn't know this is a fantasy construction and a conceit cynically conjured up by someone in a boardroom or something. You know, like, he thinks that's
they don't
just
understand
a cool
it's black
story.
Magic and witchcraft.
No, they don't. Yeah.
No, they just like the most classic conspiracy of the Gregorian calendar and adding 1,000 years to the timeline.
Yes.
The best conspiracy in history.
It's one of my favorites of all time. It's a brilliant one, isn't it?
There's nothing better. It's the greatest one of all time that people don't even really talk about too much.
Yes.
Is that when you control history, you make it seem like it's always been this way, so there's no way out. It's witchcraft, it's ritual, and black magic. It's the misuse of something that can be truly empowering and made for the worship of life, which is, inverted and made for the worship of death and self-destruction. Yeah, people, but who? No one's going to believe that. They'll say, "Oh, yeah, it's always been this way. It's always been this way. It's always been." That's just the whole deal. But who? That's. I mean, why else would there be any other reason for movies being made? What, to make your life better? I mean, come on. It's just everything is just crap. But people believe it.
Technically, if you think about it, they did the same thing with history. History was the original mainstream media in this sense. The whole premise because think about now, right? This is why
you're going to burn libraries.
This is why if you let these guys lead you around by your fucking nose, you will never escape them. Because, for example, the first thing people will do, Charles, when they think, well, how do I battle this? They'll go, well, let's look for some historical examples given to you by exactly the people who you are now trying to battle. I know, the premise then is they might make you think, well, I could have a guerrilla uprising. How do you know that that's a real thing? You don't even know that is a thing. For all you know, that's a way to get you in a jungle and just die with a machine gun against the soldiers. Similarly, another angle. Oh, but what about this guy, this one hero journalist who exposed it? Did he? Who was that guy? What were his connections? Let's see his family tree. By the way, spoiler, it's sad how much just knowing people's family trees alone like exposes half of these fucking WWE storylines. But it's because no one ever even bothers investigating that, do they? Because I always tell people, in the modern day especially, the people they present as our heroes, Charles, this is how I know culture's dumbed down. They're like, their origin stories, you can think who I'm referring to here, are like a 1960s Marvel comic book villain. You know, where it's like, and then this happened and he turned in this. Like, you could see, like, all you have to do is prod that and it'll immediately collapse. Like, what I want to know is who's his dad, who's his granddad. Yeah, exactly. The joke is they really are, you know, like sort of the intelligence agencies, like connection to comic books and stuff. Like, that is like a technique of theirs.
Surprise.
It's a technology of theirs, yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It's a hidden technology with invincible, plausible deniability. No one would ever believe it is used for nefarious purposes.
The greatest line of all time, the devil must love this line, was, but that's just a movie. Are you out your mind? They, as we just said earlier, they just got you to get one of the most evil premises you could conceive of. And they put it into your brain, ran that film, and made you think you were in that film. Holy shit! That's wild.
And then 20 years later, that's your reality, and here's why it's good.
I love that one. Yeah, true. By the way,
here's why it's good.
Let me think. Oh, what was the fucking angle I was going to go on with this? Let me think. Oh, that was it, because I don't want to lose track of this. You mentioned this earlier, so now is the appropriate time for me to segue this back in. One thing you said earlier, which I love this angle, dude. I really fuck with this heavy. Is right. This is an angle of conspiracy that it's so easy to get lost in, but I do think there's a logic to what I'm about to say. Mm-hmm. Right. I'll give you an example. So you know the movie Dune just came out last year. It was a massive blockbuster movie. Everyone's going crazy for it. I'm a big fan of the Dune books, so I was interested to see it. Right, when you watch this movie, this is why this is a great example. Because it's not that they changed anything in that movie, by the way, from the original source material. Right, it's actually very true to the source, but if anything, it just has less stuff, obviously, because it's a book versus a movie. But it's not that they took it and they cynically made like a character like someone now, Charles. But all I'll tell you is this. If you just were to come, and obviously if you're a fan listening, just do this as a hypothetical, thought exercise. Right, imagine I released the movie Dune last year, and one of the key principles within the movie Dune is about people battling for a certain area of territory that has a key energy concern for the world. And the people battling in this area, are you ready? You won't believe this, Charles. It's such a great coincidence. The bad guy's bald, and also he actually sort of brings in these super warriors called like Sardaukar that are of a different person's mercenary warriors that he can use. Well, you know what? Imagine if in the real world there was a bald guy sort of like fucking around with people, and then he had his own sort of like mini army in a different area of the world nearby him that he flies in that are like the premise I'm getting to here, fans, is that story was already set. I mean, Dune was written in the fucking like 60s or 70s or something.
Yeah.
The question is this. Whose choice was it to show you that movie now? When it just so happens, it ties into like real world, essentially narratives that are going on that you're thinking about in your mind. Like, that's the power. It's not that they take every single thing and they just warp it. It's that even just the order and the timing of when they show you the piece of media, that's the key. Because obviously with Dune, like, you know, they had 30 years to show us that since the David Lynch one. Like, they could have dropped that at any time, dude. But I do get the vibe that when they drop these things, same with Avengers and all that shite.
They're getting ready for something.
Oh, essentially, it's like a warning sign. Like, this is the next story. Get ready.
Yeah, it's that a lot of people don't realize it, is that everything you see in the news and everything you see in movies, it's all these freaks communicating with each other.
Oh, there's a lot like winking. Exactly.
It's a courier service. People don't realize that. They're communicating each other with symbols and with concepts and with words and with mantras, and people think it's for entertainment, but they're actually just sending signals to each other to get ready and to mobilize. Who would believe that, though? But it's a strange coincidence, but we all know by now that there really aren't any coincidences, are there? Never. Just you see all the movies on shooters, jarheads, vilifying veterans that come home from the war and realize everything was for nothing. Oh, well, those guys are psycho. They're going to be killed immediately. They're going to destroy. Everything is a smoke signal to all these people, all these maniacs that I don't know what they worship death. I mean, what else can you say about them? But it's witchcraft. I mean, how else I don't know how else to explain it. That sort of thing, when you get someone to anticipate their own destruction, even though it only is brought on with their permission, it's an ultimate deception, and it's the ultimate weapon that they have. And but who's going to believe that? Oh, it's just a movie, man. It's just entertainment, man. It's just freaking. You're crazy, man. You're crazy. All science fiction is always like this. And if you look into the science fiction authors, a lot of them are a little bit strange. They have some strange proclivities. I don't know much about the guy who wrote Dune. I just know that those are very staggeringly profound. That's all I know about him. But there are some other science fiction authors that were a little bit, I don't know, a little bit kind of strange in their, let's say, in their sexuality was a little bit non-standard. Yeah. But yeah, so the science fiction cult has always been the prime mover of us anticipating our own destruction and assimilation into technology and insects and death and dishumanity and unhumanity. Oh yeah, it's just one long spell that's been running since forever, I guess. Except the only exception I can think of is C.S. Lewis. Honestly, I mean, his science fiction is absolutely just freaking. I don't know how. I'm not smart enough to size it up properly.
No, I'm with you.
Words.
Yeah,
but it's a really real thing. But instead, people are worrying about things that you can do nothing about, or you could do something about easily if you understood the root causes of this suffering. But people aren't willing to deal with that, and they don't. There's too much hardship in their life too. Their time is stolen from them. Their money is stolen from them. Their children are stolen from them. I mean, all these things you have to deal with and juggle with. It makes it impossible for you to have free time. I mean, how often do people just meet up together? Like the Inklings, like Lewis and Williams and Tolkien and all those guys. I mean, good luck trying to set that up.
Yeah,
you probably go to jail for trying to do that.
No, absolutely.
Someone will toss a bomb in the bar that you meet up at. It's crazy.
Oh, for sure. I mean, one thing I would definitely say, what you're saying in that regard as well, is it's like I said earlier about like the Christian angle or whatever. Like there are certain things that you have to be in the right frame of mind or they don't mean anything. Like what's mad is I actually had heard of the premise of the Screwtape Letters ages ago, mate. I think when I was a boy, I've read all the Lion the Witch the Wardrobe type stuff, and I'd read a few of the other things he'd done, but I never read that one. And the joke is I only actually read that in the last couple of years. And it's the joke is I almost waited till the perfect time in history to read it. It felt like I remember reading it just being like, holy fuck, why has this never been recommended to me? Like this just is today. This is just what's going on, guys.
It's in lockstep in how everything is being dismantled. Lockstep. And everyone's like, oh, that's just satire. That's satire. That's just a figment of a he writes fiction. He writes children's books. You're talking about a guy who writes children's books, right? Well, there goes your legitimacy out the window. Yeah, right. You see, he was a master at this sort of thing, and he was the last one as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not Mr. Lewis scholar. I wish.
No, I know what you mean. I mean, I get the vibe as well. Quite frankly, that's the other genius angle. If it's anything to do with fiction, people just go, "Well, that's obviously made up." The joke is that's actually the only safe area you could describe these topics. Like the premise goes in the modern day, if you actually are someone who has any unorthodox political opinions, you're a fool if you write an article about today's politics. You should be writing a fucking sci-fi novel about an advanced civilization that just so happens to have all your political underpinnings. That's the only way you're going to get that message out there if you ever want to, And even then, the joke will be, as we're sort of talking about, you will then be cursed for people to think, what a brilliant piece of fiction. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's another trap.
Exactly.
Only those that are initiated can see what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah,
and by the way, that part does feel like it always was like that in the world, Like, I get the vibe. The difference was the people who had experienced some kind of an enlightenment or broken through, they would maybe look around and see the odd other person, but I'm pretty sure they also just looked back and were like, oh, so the rest of the people are still just playing this status game, this social game, this whatever culture is, society. I mean, even all those terms feel like cursed words right now when I'm saying them, mate.
Well, there's got to be a reason why the word cult is in culture. I guess it's just a coincidence. Everything, Indeed. Every single thing in this world is weaponized against people, and that's just the way. I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but it's just the way it is. It's the way it's always been, and it's the way it happens before the world is reset yet again to play again. I don't know why. Who knows? But it just seems like the nature of of the world to see if it's possible that people actually wake up and instead of worshiping death, maybe this time they'll worship life. Maybe, just maybe, they'll worship life instead of death. And that seems to be the ultimate wager that happens in this world every time. And you know, at least according to history, or at least according to the sacred texts, you know, people always succumb to the deception and the programming, and they are slowly whittled down until they fight for the causes that destroy themselves. It happens every time, and technology is the tool that facilitates that happening. The technology is what it's all about. That's why you can't do shit in this world without technology.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Who would believe it, though? Who would believe that? No one. Well, that's why it's made my life a lot better. Oh, I can't get a job because I said something on Twitter a couple of years ago. Oh man.
That's why the angle I find really crazy is if it doesn't even take much digging to get into this area, but people will just have to know where to look, obviously, is probably the most genius psyop ever maybe put on like human race, mate, is they made technology seem like it's artificial, even though for a start off you're using elements from the earth. It's artificial,
yes, yeah,
but at the same time, it just appeared out of nowhere. Like, basically, you have all these years where it's like, oh, I'm a scientist in a way, and then all of a sudden it's like, here are machines, do things with them. Yep. And what they do is they don't tell you, and this is so easy to find, it is just a direct output of occultism. Like, as it's not, because, you know, they give you hints, they'll sort of tell you, you know, Isaac Newton, when he wasn't just doing calculus, he'd sort of fuck around with some silly alchemy. It's like, that's actually the opposite way. Isaac Newton's life would be, I'm an alchemist who on the side did this thing you call maths.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
people, like to him, remember to him, mathematics was the language of God. Like, he didn't think that was some side shit.
He was a hardcore occultist.
All of them were into that, as far as I can tell, mate. If you look deep enough, the further you push on the tech tree, as it were, of people involved, it just becomes pure occultism.
Oh yeah, everything is a deeper technology than what people understand. They look at technology as bits and ones and zeros and routines and you know, algorithms and things like that. But it's really something that taps into and controls the brain of people on the earth. They don't really understand. They think it's just.
I mean, as you said, most of the evil in the world wouldn't be possible without the technology that enables it.
Oh yeah, it's the technology that really does it. And you know what I like? I like, you know, the same jet propulsion engines for 60, 75 years without a change. I like that a lot. Don't you? Yeah. Isn't that nice? No change at all. No change at all. No change for decades and decades and decades. Only in the movies. No change. It's just like in the 60s. We went into space. We went freaking 70 years later, whatever. We're finally getting back to doing it again. Any advances? Actually, no. Okay, what about the last time? Do you have any of the information? Well, it got lost. Okay, that sounds reasonable. Technology that you're seeing right now, I mean, you know this. Technology you're seeing right now in terms of deep fakes, dude, what is it? 50, 60, 70, 100 years ahead? Now they're just rolling it out.
Oh, they're incredible. Oh, yeah. By the way, that's one of the crazy. There's an example of how people are socially conditioned to never even question something. No. Everyone on fucking Instagram has been. They're using those deep fakes, those filters, so they know that they themselves, with a phone in their pocket, can create a very believable fake that they are like Jim Carrey or something. But then they'll literally mind wipe themselves, Charles, turn to a different screen and watch the news and go, oh, that's that person and he's saying those things. I saw it with my own eyes. By the way, that line is so cursed. You know when they go, I saw it, you didn't see it with your own eyes. You're not there. Dude, you're literally not seeing it with your own eyes. You're seeing a projection on a fucking screen. Like, if anything, surely movies have shown you that's the most manipulatable image in the whole universe is the screen, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, people forget that Lucifer was a manipulator of air and of light and of everything in this world. People sort of forget that he was the first technological mage that came up from wherever the fuck he was.
Dude, that's the angle that people always forget this angle, because again, it was from the Christians who were the evangelists. Remember, they were all against rock and roll because it was the devil's music. Again, that has aged so phenomenally well. I apologize now to all those guys.
What's rock and roll a euphemism for? Sex.
Yeah, and by the way, what people don't know is, in the Bible, famously, it says that Satan, within his body, has all, like, instruments of the earth that he can create.
He's a god of music, too.
Yeah, exactly. That is literally his shit in the law, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, it's been around for what, couple thousand years? No big deal. Yeah, people don't understand that technology and music and deception itself is in the realm of the god of this world. People don't even know. They're like, oh, well, you see, these scientists, Intel, they're working around the clock to make your games more FPS. Yeah, fuck you. You think I'm fucking stupid?
I know.
You think I'm stupid? It's crazy. It's insane. Oh, just, decades and decades of nothing. Nothing at all. Nothing. The only thing that gets better, the bombs get bigger. You know what else? You know what else changes? Lifespan gets shorter. That's kind of strange, isn't it?
That's also, by the way,
lifespan gets shorter. That's kind of weird.
That's also an area where I don't accept the premise again that like normal people just claim like, well, I'm not responsible. I'm not doing any of it. It's like, bro, do you have a fucking mobile phone? If you have a smartphone, that's essentially a clever way that they've gotten you to allow them to have a billion like proxy wars and like fucking rebels in countries getting like certain fucking minerals. It actually justifies so much of the evil in the world just you having a fucking phone. And gold. Like the genius is they get us to buy into that evil by saying, yes, I guess I have to have it to have the phone. Like
diamonds.
They make us all believe that shit. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, you always got to get people to do your dirty work for you. That's what a real master does. But people will never understand it. And look, I use technology. I mean, what am I going to say? I'm not Ted Kaczynski. I mean, look what happened to him. So I'm not trying to be him. But it's just people don't understand that. Here's the thing that people don't understand. Everything that happens in this world is religious. Everything, even technology, it's a hardcore religion. No one will ever understand it until it's time to fucking die.
Yes,
that's the only time they'll understand it. People will never get it. When you forget the basics, the absolute basics, something as basic as Lucifer is the god of air and illusion and material vibration and music. I mean, that's pretty much the answer to everything. Everything in the world, you can answer it with that. But you have to be initiated into understanding true, slow boil atrocity to really get that through your head. Otherwise, it's going to seem like a joke, as it's made to seem. It's a joke. This is ancient history, ancient religious history. People just look at it as a joke. Like, some guys walking on water, this and that. Yeah, you got to love your brothers. Yeah, people don't even listen to it. They look at it like it's a joke. It's like a kindergartner's mindset of the ultimate deepest truths in the world. People look at it like it's a joke. And the only thing that's real is watching a snuff film in a movie theater or worrying about the sex lives of actors, pretending like they even have sex organs. You think I'm stupid?
Exactly.
You think I'm fucking stupid? I know you got Hollywood actors. They have relationships like you and me. What are you fucking stupid? They probably don't got dicks. Well, anyway, we don't have to go down that road.
You could believe it that way.
Yeah, you know.
What about this then? Another angle I actually find interesting on this whole topic as well is when you talk about the idea of like all these different things that you believe, like that conditioned into you. I've noticed another level, and it's like a massive giveaway when there's an enormous topic, because it's genius. They manage to disguise the enormous topics as being the most frivolous. So I'll give you an example, dude. You know, when someone asks that question naively, it's the first thing they say. If you say, I have any skepticism about, say, the Apollo missions, the first thing they say is like, but what would it benefit them to trick you on that? That's the genius, because that's such a level 1 part of an investigation. That the genius is you have to get to like level 10 before you're like, holy fuck, that's what they were hiding. So it wasn't even anything to do with the surface level thing. It was like essentially they had to trick you to not believe this is real, and then not believe another thing's real, and then not believe another thing even could be. And then within that tiny circle, they're going to write a little story called Moon Mission. And then they just say, do you want yes or no to that? Well, at that point, the stakes are just so low, and you don't know what it's really about. And you think it's just about, well, do I believe this video was real?
Yeah,
you don't know. It might literally be as big as the concept of what even is the area you live. That might, like, it might be as an enormous a question as that, which is what's hiding behind sort of the paper mache of like, here's a moon mission, you know. Like, basically the point I'm getting to is this. Another area I can tell someone's on level 1 of this shit is where they're like, oh, we're all going to win. Good news, guys. We all win because all the evil guys are really stupid. And look, you won't believe it. They fucked up and made the leader just said the sentence wrong. What a moron. Lol, we're going to win. It's like, bro, they're so smart. They sold you that they're idiots and still got all their own way. That's genius. As you say, this stuff is decades in the planning. They're amazing at setting this shit
Look how feeble, look how old he is. He can't even, he's just stuttering. Yes. Yeah, they're incompetent. They're stupid, right? They've run the world for thousands of years because they're stupid.
I know. And like crazy. I say about the psyops, you see your own friends, they start to enter the maze, they immediately just pick, do I go left or right? It's like, get out the maze! Like, I'm going right on this one, I have a good feeling about this. It's like, bloody hell, these guys who design these mazes fucking know what they're doing.
Oh, yeah, you gotta run on the Z-axis. You gotta go inside and outside of yourself. If you go just, friggin' X and Y, it's like a two-dimensional existence in this world. It's if you don't use your faculties to go inside or completely outside of the directions that you're given, you have no chance to learn anything at all. And then everything you believe is built on a false pretense, and everything you argue against is false, even at the most basic foundation of the argument. You're arguing the realness or the fakeness of something that's not real at all. It's so hardcore. But now that is magic right there.
Yeah.
Like the real application of real illusion. That when people think of illusion, or let's say Lucifer as a god of deception or illusion, that is illusion. That is deception. But people are like, oh, that's just a fairy tale, man. I mean, whatever. Okay, yeah, sure. People don't have any idea. And they're like this. Well, you see the telescope. You see all these billions of galaxies everywhere. I'm like, yeah. That's my only answer. Yeah. What else can you say to that shit? Would you dedicate your life to proving it false or real? What are you, crazy? You're better off freaking weaving a goddamn basket. But you're better off freaking, I don't know, doing anything else. It's just they get people to give their lives and give their time to nothing, so their lives amount to shit. And then they do it all again when they're freaking born again. Maybe if that happens, who knows? But it's just everything is under false pretenses, and that's a big reason why if you argue anything, if you argue or debate, you already have lost.
Oh, you have. By the way, there's another thing. I used to be someone, I mean, this is even sort of the world I came out of the internet, like everything was arguing. It was all a battle, it was a war. Now, dude, I don't have debates. I'll have discussions. And when we have the discussion, you can have a totally different perspective than me if you want.
When you try to get to a truth.
Yeah, the problem is if we're battling, though, in the end, that just becomes stupid shit. Like, the worst is when you both essentially realise you've just both presented other people's opinions that you thought were good. Like, we never really got to what we think. Like, let's get down to brass tacks. What do we actually think about this? Like, what are our experiences? Instead, all we do, we're just trained to do this. We do things like, this is something I actually taught my Discord of people, by the way. I taught them, we have a channel, it's called Food and Lifestyle. And I had to teach them, don't say things there that you heard from other people work, but you never tried yourself. Because I said, if we do that, we're just going to be down a rabbit hole following essentially like the fucking puppet master that isn't us. Yeah. I said, if all we ever do in that channel is only ever talk about what we are directly experienced and what works for us, we can't get lost that way, guys. That is the fucking compass.
Oh, yeah. People don't know how. People don't even know they're lost to begin with. So it's impossible to convince someone that's already weaponized against themselves. So even if you did give them the truth, they would choke on it or they would kill you with it. It's just pointless to even get involved with anything like that. And if people aren't ready for it, they're not ready for it. If they're never going to be ready for it, well, sucks to be them, doesn't it?
Do you actually get a sense?
Never be ready.
I alluded to it earlier. A lot of people, unfortunately, who even vaguely go into this area we're talking about, I think, sadly, they just, for like almost corporate reasons, they have to believe that, everyone's waking up and that's all going to get fixed soon and that we're into some perfect utopia or nirvana and, we end the cycle, whatever fucking terminology you want to use. They have to believe that, right? Because that's their whole perspective. Like, there's got to be a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm kind of a bit different, right? I actually kind of think like you. As long as I can sort of disengage with Babylon, which I think is always existed, and live my own life. And to some degree, like I always say at the moment, I hope this ages well, at the moment I always say the idea that you opt into the apocalypse, I think that's genius. I think it's wonderful. Thank you, whoever did that. It's almost a level of compassion that makes me think there have to be rules to the realm I'm living in because I can sort of opt out of evil. That's cool. But the problem I have is this, right? Basically, do you think that essentially, does the human condition change, do you think? Do you think there will always be some people who see these things and some who never will and will always make up the majority? Do you think there's a world where somehow humanity generally disengages from these things? How do you think of things? Is it a cycle? Is it a test realm where people come to learn this lesson? What's your kind of take on things? Obviously, it's enormous questions. I'm not saying it like you have the fucking world. I just want to get your take. What's your sense?
Oh, it's a good thing to run around. Well, it seems like it's always been the cycle of degeneration and turning your back on the creator, then worshiping death, and it all happening again every single time. But I think that because time, I know I haven't thought about too much of this because I'm pretty stupid, but I think if that time is infinite and a cycle keeps on going and going, then it's not possible for things to not be resolved sooner or later. And if they are resolved sooner or later, they are already solved right now. Like if
that's what you mean. Yes, sure.
You know what I mean? Like if you're stuck in linear time, you're not going to get anywhere. If you're not thinking, well, I mean, you can't really exactly think like a god, but if you have a conception of time as a human does, then it's going to be a false pretense right off the bat. So if you take time into consideration and the infiniteness of it, then just like they say, like, oh, there's infinite planets and everything in space, and a world that is where your president is out there somewhere because it runs every permutation of everything you can think of. But it's sort of like that. If the world is going to be healed, it will be healed, and if it will be healed, it already has been. Because if this is the cycle where you're constantly reincarnated and constantly, then you're like one minute is meaningless, just like a trillion years is meaningless if it goes on forever. I don't know. That's just something I'd throw out there. I don't know. No. It seems like that, and the despair is the only enemy there is. The despair to say that the world will always be destroyed and will always lose. I think that's the ultimate tool of deception to get people to even stop trying to make themselves better instead of just the bad state that they're born or whatever you want to call it. But it seems like that is a real thing. Like if sort of a salvation is going to come, which no doubt it will, because it's just going to happen until it does. I mean, if you run every permutation or everything for a trillion centuries or whatever, then it may as well have already happened, and we may as well be living through that one right now. It just seems a little bit less self-defeatist than assuming that everything is going to be destroyed, that the sky is going to open up and God's going to come home and light everything on fire. I mean, I guess you could think about that sort of stuff, but then again, you'd be opting into the apocalypse.
Yes.
And that's kind of the way I feel about it.
You'll notice that whenever you think about bigger topics like this, immediately all the fiction shit they've been cramming in your head for the last 40 years just immediately starts leading you astray. Like, for example, one of the reasons why I'm not supposed to think that, like, life can continue without getting evil is I'm supposed to think, Charles, that eventually they'll throw me in a gulag. By the way, very convenient that Stranger Things just had a series that was about someone being in a gulag right now. Exactly this time. Yeah, weird that. Because almost like that would almost make me think, Charles, maybe I won't step out of line. Maybe I don't want to be tossed into a thing where, again, I don't even know if these things have happened, do I? How the fuck do I know? It wasn't my time period. I'm just being fed it by the same information source that's telling me it's going to fuck me up. So one of the issues I have basically is this. When I think longer term, like, essentially, it's like you said before, like, I don't really know if there's anything I have to do in the world. Like, to me, it's just work on myself. I think if everyone works on themselves, the reason I know that that's how it works is because, as you say, the mainstream, by the way, by default is always inverted. The devil, all he does is invert everything. It's the ultimate way of changing something that was good before, right? You make it upside down.
Can only invert.
So I would say this, if people don't understand the premise, when they do these things like that and they have to invert them, right, they can make it seem like, if you notice, this is what all those movies also do, right? To make everything okay, I, the individual, must save the collective, the world / humanity. Whereas the actual spiritual truth seems to be the opposite, right? It's like, actually, you save humanity when you, the individual,
you save
yourself. And then if everyone does that, we're all saved, because notice
like
how...
Horizon.
Notice how what they do on the other side is exactly the opposite, dude. As you say, they make you question and give up on yourself. That's the ultimate goal of culture.
Yep.
The ultimate goal of culture is the fight's already over. In fact, if you notice, it's what they do in every tech field. Every tech field goes like this. You don't have to worry about what the doctor thinks because we've figured out 99% of the other 1% is coming. Oh, climate change, it must be happening. Here's 99% of evidence, the 1% still have to go. They always make it seem like the battle's almost over, so there's no point in fighting. And the only reason they do that is because there is a point in not fighting, but you know what, like you essentially can choose not to be part of this. It's not inevitable.
Oh yeah, no, you can. You if you apply the law of opposites, do the opposite of what either first comes to your mind or of what you've been taught to do, then maybe you can actually get somewhere. And it's a real truth. And you have to become a superhero and try to save the world and spread your message. Well, I mean, we all know what happens to someone like that. They get nailed onto a cross.
Exactly.
It happens every time when you become sort of too powerful. So the quest to save others is really the quest to give yourself up and sacrifice yourself for I don't know what, the good of the world. I mean, the people that you would try to save are the people that would bash your brains in with a rock or freaking shoot you in the head. You know, it's just trying to save others is insanity. Because if you can't save yourself, all you'll be spitting out is instructions on how to die. You know, how to die faster or slower. It's a real thing to become a superhero and to freaking stick your neck out for people that would literally kill you.
Even that feels like a psyop,
doesn't that sound
right?
Righteous?
Yeah, because think about this. They're telling you, be like a Batman or an Iron Man. Sacrifice yourself, as you say, for the people in your community who, by the way, would spit in your face and turn you in tomorrow and fucking wouldn't care shit about you. Like, that's actually demonic in itself. Why would I, someone who has to protect my family, head on attack the enemy that will easily kill me in order that I could save some sort of weird conceit of people I don't really know, but I'm supposed to just believe are inherently good? That's
and those people that you're trying to save, they would be laughing at you in the streets. They would be spitting at you.
They would do that thing where they would be like, "Lol, Darwin Award," you know, all that shit. Like, mate, they've made the average person. In fact, this is a quick topic. Maybe we can make this the last topic, right? One other thing they've done as well is the way they've infected the normal person with like low-level evil is crazy, dude. Like, I'll give you an example. The way that they've made us within the space of 2 years, we now essentially just dismiss all. I'll say the word white because I just mean the skin colour here, not that fucking cursed demographic. If you see a white woman complain in public, she's a Karen. Dude, that's a fucked up. That's a way to make us all not respect our fucking mothers and aunts, etc. Like, you can't see the angle on that.
It's to delegitimize the criticism of your basics that are being stripped away from you and turn you into a whiny bitch.
I mean, think about that. In that, well, as a culture now we're just turning on just people within our families. Like, what the fuck?
Oh yeah. Yep. They have to get families to fight themselves. I mean, they always have you do their warring for them.
Yes.
They have to, because they can't create anything. They can only get the real power in this world, which is the people. The people that run things, they're not living and they have no souls. I mean, I don't know how else to spin it. You know, it's the people that have souls and the people that are still on the planet that have the real power.
I mean, it's definitely apt that the whole Matrix angles, the idea they're the AI, control it, but like we're the real thing. Like that's way more on point than people realize. Yeah.
Oh yeah, people don't understand that they really are batteries. They really are batteries that contribute to the collective conscious of the world, which is some people call it the noosphere, just the collective super intelligence of the cumulative intelligence or suffering of the world. And it looks like these people that are from hell, they want to make this world hell too and spread their suffering, because it's a philosophy of the world raped me, so I rape the world or something like it. You know what I mean? Like it's like that. It's I don't know what.
Somehow that ties into the movie angle as well, right? They also for some reason you'll notice again. By the way, another rule of life that everyone will, I hope, know from their normal life is judge people by their actions, not by what they say. And if you look at the actions of these people, dude, one of the main things they are concerned with in the world is getting as many people to collectively share a similar thought at the same time as possible. That is enormously important to them with movies.
That sounds like a ritual,
sporting event. It does, doesn't it? Like that. That's clearly what they do over and over again.
That doesn't sound like black magic, does it?
It implies we generate some sort of energy for them, or we're doing something for them, right?
Yeah, it's basic. It's magic 101 is collectively focusing on one certain outcome and increasing the strength of it and amplifying it. It's like magic 101 that people would say, oh yeah, you've been watching too much Lord of the Rings, shooting icicles. You've been playing too much Skyrim, bro. Yeah, it's all a joke. People don't understand anything about the power of intention. and the strength of the spiritual intention. People only think, well, they usually only think about cocks, honestly, which I guess
Sure.
that's just the thing. They just kind of think about living by the dick. But, it's just like the sword. You live by the dick, you die by the dick. So, I mean, if you want to live in that realm, then I guess you'll be out in the streets with animals and
Quite
and
literally
all
at the moment,
else.
maybe. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, we'll see it soon. Well, it's not going to be long,
Sure.
but you know how it goes. But it's really crazy. But people won't ever really. People, they'll say, "Oh, this is like the age of Aquarius. People are really going to wake up." I say, "Yeah, they'll wake up to the freaking
Yes.
final nail in their coffin. That's what they'll wake up to. They'll wake up dead."
Oh no, the joke is, like, half those people, like, the one that cracks me up, because now I can just see it too obviously, mate, is, the sort of alt-like grifter people, where they're still, mate, in 2022, when people have literally had, like, entire industries you can't work in anymore for obvious reasons, you say things, they're still doing that thing of, like,
about MAGA the whole time.
But this is their angle, though, dude. Their angle is like, you know what? I think we need to start having a conversation. What do you mean start having a conversation? The conversations need to end ages ago. Like, we need some action. Like, what are you going to do? Like, but the joke is they're just keeping you on the fucking wheel, aren't they? That's the hamster wheel.
Oh,
like,
let's
have another convo. Yeah, let's get some more. Let's get some more subs in, guys. Let's get some. What topic would you like to discuss next? It's all
about
spinning
money.
Wheels.
Don't forget to send me money. Then
Here's my last topic. Then
I'll represent you. I'll represent you in the Senate.
I'll be your proxy warrior. Yeah.
God.
Here's the last topic. Here's how I'll segue it so we can wrap this up neatly. Right. The question I would have is this. The other problem I've also realized everyone in this space is having is that idea that because they think this is like important information everyone must have, it makes them a fool. It makes them out themselves as an idiot. Because I'll give you this example, right? Thinking because you have an important piece of info, you should just give it to anyone willy-nilly. That's like going to your grandma and just telling her about the last woman you fucked. Think how inappropriate that convo would be. But it's true. Why would you hide it from grandma, right? Because certain things aren't appropriate. In certain relationships, you don't just give certain info away. So, like, to me, one of the reasons I have no problems at all in my life now, dude, is I can have all these really out there ideas and I'll just blurt them out all to the first person I meet. And in fact, even people in my life, I sort of try to gauge, like, I always say I just sprinkle a breadcrumb or two. I see how they take it. Are they interested in that area? Sometimes they are. Sometimes they're not at all. And I've noticed, by the way, people do not treat me like I'm crazy because I'm not presenting in that way. I'm not saying things that seem unhinged.
You're not saying, dude, you got to know this. How evil things are.
In fact, I would say it's the other way around. I would say what happens is when people talk to me, because I'm gauging the level, like, I would say if anything, they're like, oh, you actually have some points. You're like, no, I thought it would be a lot weirder than that. Like, I actually think you don't have to be some pariah, like, by default. You can choose to be.
No.
But you can also sort of, like, essentially people, the mainstream wants you to believe from the electric fences you'll just be derided, you're a fool, don't speak a word of this. I'd say it's more just be careful how you do it, but people actually, on some level, they resonate with some of this stuff, I think.
Yeah, there's a reason why Christ spoke in parables, and he didn't just shout everything.
Yes.
He didn't teach everybody how to walk on water or to freaking or to resurrect people or whatever, whatever you believe in. He didn't give it to those people because they would just crush his head with a rock while he was sleeping, or taking a leak against a bush. They would freaking put a knife right in his spine. You shut your mouth when it comes to people that are eyeballing you up and down, wishing you were already dead. You don't want to give them a reason to actually kill you. There's a reason why people really don't, the smart people really don't get up on the soapbox and stick their neck out for people who would kill them. No, it makes sense, and you do come off as absolutely crazy if you really say that you have the ultimate truth and here's what it is, and it's just people aren't ready. People can only be boiled by degrees. If you give it to them big, they get the pitchforks out. If you give it to them too fast, they freaking make you die fast. It's crazy. That's why the parables and the comedy and things like that, it's a way for you to just transform yourself. It's if you try to get other people to go along with you, it's already over for you. You turn into a superhero, you turn into some freak from Stranger Things who's always crying, always being raped, always crying, always suffering, always on fire. You got to turn yourself into some sort of witch. It's insanity. That whole, it's just magnetism, the weaponization of empathy and a thirst for justice and righteousness. Everyone wants it, but it just to try to give it to people is something that you'll die for fast.
Oh, dude, one thing you've just made me realise there, I didn't even ever thought to phrase it this way, but it's so on point. That's how you know there are sort of, there are either like fundamental principles or some sort of rules to the realm we live in. Because if it was just the case that like it's not, it's what it appears to be, evil can do whatever it wants, there's not really any consequences unless some sort of a police arrests them. And aside from that, you just live your life and you have a great time. The reason you know that's not the case is because even when the evil aspects and influences try to pervert us and trick us into doing things that would harm us, they always sell us on the really positive angles. Like we're doing it for family, we're doing it for a community, we're doing it for the future,
doing it for your country.
It's like they know what actually really is what we need, and they sell us the shit as what we need.
Yeah,
and we buy it and eat
the
it.
invert of the righteousness.
Yes, exactly.
And then the tools to your own destruction.
But you can see it's implied that the people on some level do know that they do want the right thing. It's just they're tricked into thinking this is it.
Yeah, people do want to live peacefully.
Yes.
People do want life. People don't want a bad death. They don't want destruction. They really don't. They're just deceived. They're deceived into working, the for the machine. They're deceived into spreading the dead machine, and it's always the goodness is always weaponized against someone, and it's how it always is, because they know people really do want good for everybody. It's just people only go bad when they're fooled, they're tricked, and it's not even possible to get any real truth out there in the mainstream, or to get anything from it. You have to go to old sources or just a still mind. I mean, it's just if your mind is chaos, you're just going to get nowhere. And it really is the ultimate deception. Everything is always weaponized against themselves, and that's how people become legion. That's the legion of dead that looking to spread their deadness. And who's going to believe it? They'll say, "Oh, I really believe that these people are doing good for us, and it's going to turn out really, really good. And I'm going to fight for our traditions and our values." And next thing you know, freaking a couple decades later, it's the exact opposite in reality, and they're getting shouted down by everybody in the world. Well, like this. Well, looks like we fought all those wars for nothing, didn't we?
I mean, the joke is you always did.
That's why you don't fight a war.
Exactly.
That's why war itself is a joke.
Yes.
It's a joke. Yeah, the self is the only thing, and it's not a satanic or an egotistical thing. But if you're sick, all you're going to do is spread sickness. And people forget that they're deeply abused and deeply sick and deeply cursed. People forget that curses are real. People forget that those things are a real thing. People, they just don't remember, and there's an amnesia that only dissipates when the brain is dying. When it's time to die, that's the only time you say, "Oh man, all there could be is good. Everything else is just a deception." But it's just it'll be a pretty hard game to get people to even consider that. Really hard game.
Yeah.
But I would say this for that game.
Put it this way, the thing is though, as much as this, like, by the way, if you haven't noticed, like I said about electric fences, I don't get scared by those, mate. Like, I don't care if people go, "Oh, you sound silly, like, woo out there." Like, mate, it ain't for you.
Good.
You obviously just need to go and watch the latest Stranger Things. You're going to love this season. It's exactly for you. Exactly.
I'm going to have to watch it. I've been trying to get my wife to watch it with me, but she is absolutely sickened with everything she sees on that.
Yeah.
And I tried to watch that a few years ago, and I was straight up, my face was red, like I was embarrassed watching it. But you know what? Hey, you can always learn to laugh at even
The problem is, if you have eyes to see, those are the things where it's so political, they're fucking like mixing into the pie there, as it were, But what I would say is when people have those topics that they think are like too out there, too woo-woo, this might sound mad, but one of the reasons why I think it is essential for the beast system to run by constantly programming and conditioning people is because as much as this sounds like the most hackneyed, like spiritual truth of all time, dude, every time I ever encounter what appears to be profound, true, beautiful, like something like of actual value in the world, it really is like I always knew it and I'm just remembering it again. It's not like it's new information. Actually, I get the sense that I'm actually lifting the cloud of whatever shite was pumped in my head. It's more like, this is what the world... Because as a result, dude, that's why I don't have this fear of like, we've got to get to the secret information though, and they're guarding it though, and they'll never let us have it. And now we're like, no, like we have to withdraw from all their shite. Yeah, you will remember it. You will. Like essentially, that's why I said that point earlier. Like essentially, they even have to sell us the evil, but in a way way that sounds really positive. On some level, we all know what we need with family and community, but the real versions, not the simulacrum. Like, on some level, we all inherently did know that at the beginning, and we would if we remembered it.
Yeah, it's the amnesia. It's the lack of the constant state of remembering wisdom, and that's what really it's easy to make people forget. And when you forget, you lose, and you have nothing. If you look for a cult or look for old books, if you really base everything on that, then you have nothing. Because those are just tools to make you remember, just to remember. And if people remembered, then they would have a chance.